Within the last 3.5 years of our establishment as a center, we've achieved some significant milestones, including the following. The launch of the Safer Digital Ghana, which was done by the Vice President in 2018. The launch of the Point of Contact for Incident Reporting, which was launched by the Sector Minister, Honorable Osuekufu, in 2019. The development of the Computer Emergency Response ecosystem, including a setup at the NCA, but also our engagement with the Central Bank for the financial sector. The revision of Ghana's national cybersecurity policy and strategy, which has been enhanced to the level of our international standard. We've also drafted a cybersecurity bill which seeks to regulate the cybersecurity ecosystem of the country and to further consolidate our gains as far as our cybersecurity development is concerned. But most importantly, we've also signed up to 2 international conventions, which we are implementing. These are certain milestones which have also attracted international attention, including the Council of Europe, which has recognized Ghana as a hub for capacity building, ECOWAS Commission, which has then requested Ghana to lead cybersecurity in the sub-region, but also the World Bank, which has further built the confidence in investing in our digital economy. I think we haven't gotten it yet. We're still on a journey, as a matter of fact, but they are critical milestones. The main reason is the fact that we have a strong political commitment to cybersecurity. Take this from me as advisor. I think political commitment has been one of the fundamental successes, determinant that has really brought us this far. But most importantly, I think we've also been privileged to have a champion for cybersecurity in the person of the Minister for Communications, Honorable Osuekufu, who has persistent leadership of the country, but also for the technical working group for their support in getting to where we have gotten to. Let's continue and scale up our digital protection.
The technical working group has been divided into subgroups. We have the criminal justice, defense and intelligence, stakeholder engagement sub-working group, and the set, that's the computer emergency response team sub-working groups. And all these groups have worked assiduously to see the level that we have in cybersecurity as a nation. And outside this country, Ghana is recognized as one of the leading nations when it comes to cybersecurity.
NCA is the telecommunications sector regulator in Ghana. Telecommunications is one of the critical sectors, according to Ghana's national cybersecurity strategy and policy. Now, in the past, there has only been CERGH that was established in 2014, but following the efforts by government, several sectors, including telecommunications, have set up cybersecurity teams and sets, of which NCA is one.
Being a member of the National Cyber Technical Working Group has been very profitable, both to my institution, to the group, and also to the National Cybersecurity Center. In this wise, there have been certain occasions where discussions has led us to get people to help my institution. And as I speak, FBI, or let's call it legal attaché of the US Embassy, and YOCO, the Ghana Police Service, were equipped with tools to forensically examine digital devices. And as I speak, they have given us computers, they have given us tools, they have also established a lab for us. If it has not been because of the national cybersecurity collaboration, we wouldn't have come this far.
Our contribution is very significant in the sense that when you look at the different areas that the critical national infrastructure falls in, everyone and every entity for that matter uses personal data for different purposes. For collecting data on travelers or employees or citizens one way or the other, people who are doing the right thing, people who are malicious and trying to do the wrong things. All these categories of individuals have rights under the Data Protection Act to be protected.
The mandate for the FIC and the collaboration between the National Cybersecurity Office is one of very deep collaboration because we at the FIC see cybersecurity and cyber crime as one of the predicate offenses of money laundering and terrorist financing.
The National Communications Authority has supported the National Cybersecurity Center's efforts, which led to the accession of the Budapest Convention by Ghana.
From GCNet's perspective, we've come in as a public-private partner. We've partnered with the National Cybersecurity Secretariat. First, we sponsored the program because we believe that what the Secretariat is doing actually bodes well for the nation. Now, we have to actually understand that the times in which we're in place across the globe, and Ghana is no exception. And so the work of the Secretariat, we believe we need to support, because without that support, no international body will have the confidence to come and implement solutions in Ghana.
Within the last 3.5 years of our establishment as a center, we've achieved some significant milestones, including the following. The launch of the Safer Digital Ghana, which was done by the Vice President in 2018. The launch of the Point of Contact for Incident Reporting, which was launched by the Sector Minister, Honorable Eslosu Ekufu, in 2019. The development of the Computer Emergency Response ecosystem, including a setup at the NCA, but also our engagement with the Central Bank for the financial sector. The revision of Ghana's National Cybersecurity Policy and Strategy, which has been enhanced to the level of our international standard. We've also drafted a cybersecurity bill which seeks to regulate the cybersecurity ecosystem of the country and to further consolidate our gains as far as our cybersecurity development is concerned. But most importantly, we've also signed up to 2 international conventions, which we are implementing. These are certain milestones which have also attracted international attention, including the Council of Europe, which has recognized Ghana as a hub for capacity building, ECOWAS Commission, which has then requested Ghana to lead cybersecurity in the sub-region, but also the World Bank, which has further built the confidence in investing in our digital economy. I think we haven't gotten it yet. We're still on a journey, as a matter of fact, but they are critical milestones. The main reason is the fact that we have a strong political commitment to cybersecurity. Take this from me, as advisor, I think political commitment has been one of the fundamental successes, determinant that has really brought us this far. But most importantly, I think we've also been privileged to have a champion for cybersecurity in the person of the Minister for Communications, Honorable Eslosu, who has persistently led the fights, led the charge towards improving Ghana's cybersecurity readiness. I think we're grateful for the leadership of the country, but also for the technical working group for their support in getting to where we have gotten to. Let's continue and scale up our digital protection.
The technical working group has been divided into subgroups. We have the criminal justice, defense and intelligence, stakeholder engagement sub-working group, and the set, that's the computer emergency response team sub-working groups. And all these groups have worked assiduously to see the level that we have in cybersecurity as a nation. And outside this country, Ghana is recognized as one of the leading nations when it comes to cybersecurity.
NCA is the telecommunications sector regulator in Ghana. Telecommunications is one of the critical sectors, according to Ghana's National Cybersecurity Strategy and Policy. Now, in the past, there has only been CERGH that was established in 2014, but following the efforts by government Several sectors, including telecommunications, have set up cybersecurity teams and sets, of which NCA is one.
Being a member of the National Cyber Technical Working Group has been very profitable both to my institution, to the group, and also to the National Cybersecurity Center. In this wise, there have been certain occasions where discussions has led us to get people to help my institution. And as I speak, as a part or a member of the criminal justice sector, we were able to negotiate successfully with the FBI, or let's call it legal attaché of the US Embassy, and Yoko, the Ghana police.
The privacy of individuals as well as their personal data. So if it has to do with privacy, then definitely the Data Protection Commission has got a role in this. In reverence to God, shall we please be on our feet as I call upon Mr. Samson Boaz to give us the opening prayer.
Shall we close our eyes while we short word of prayer? Father, Lord Jesus, this morning we call upon you as your children have gathered here. We pray, may whatever we are here to do be in your hands. And we pray that you give us the glory, give us the knowledge, wisdom, so we'll be able to protect our children online as we go. These are many more and many things we ask from you. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Thank you very much, Mr. Samson Boaz. In an era where body is overly exposed, privacy is simply the coolest thing we have to follow. Permit me to introduce to you some dignitaries we have in our midst this morning. I am privileged to introduce to you the Deputy Director for Data Protection Commission in the person of Ms. Valerie Hudson. We also have in our midst this morning the Director in charge of Regulations and Compliance for Data Protection Commission, Dr. Patrick
Sylvia Gifty appear
from Information Governance Solutions. We also have Madam Judith from Ministry of Communications. We have Madam Salina Oforiwa from GEFEC. In our midst this morning is Mr. Dalen Kwabna Hilbert from SNET. We will continue to do the introduction as the program unfolds. Just for highlights, the program is in two sections this morning. There will be a series of presentations on the functionalities and mandates of the Data Protection Commission. And then we will zoom to the panel discussion where we would go to the topic of the day. Let us take the remarks from the advisor of the National Cybersecurity Center.
A very good morning to all of you, and welcome to this important session, a workshop on maintaining privacy online in the era of COVID-19. Cybersecurity is an important element of the security of every enterprise, every community, but also every state. At the same time, securing our digital ecosystem also requires the protection of people's rights, even within the digital space as well. That is why we've incorporated privacy-related discussions as part of cybersecurity awareness month discussions. If you look at the public sector, a lot of digital services are ongoing. The paperless portal, e-justice system, e-parliament, mobile money interoperability, national ID system, e-immigration, digital property addressing system. At the same time, when you also look at the public sector space, a lot of digital initiatives are ongoing. And of course, COVID-19 has further brought to bear the need to use digital system resources for communication, for business engagement, and even our social interactions. So there is a need in all this to ensure that individual rights to privacy, data protection issues are well covered. At least Ghana has a recognition. We are respected with respect to our work within the cyber security ecosystem. In other words, our approach to cybersecurity has always been based on the right to protect individual liberties, even online. We are a member of the Freedom Online Coalition, and they agreed for Ghana to host a conference early part of the year because of our approach in respecting right, incorporating right-respecting principles into our work. That has reflected in our revision of the National Cybersecurity Policy and Strategy, but also the drafting of the Cybersecurity Bill, which is currently before Cabinet. It is also good to emphasize that Ghana was selected to serve on advisory committee of the Global Internet Forum to Counter Terrorism, partly because of the fact that we take rights issues very serious. This is not the only development that has really enhanced our image as a right-respecting country. Ghana is a signatory to the African Union Convention on Cybersecurity and Personal Data Protection. And we are among the few countries on the country with a cybersecurity legislation, with a data protection legislation, which is Act 843. So it is important that we take measures to address privacy-related issues. There have been serious breaches globally, and we can cite, for example, in 2015, U.S. Office of Personnel Management, there was a hack in which information about background checks were leaked. In 2019, the Bulgarian revenue management system was also compromised. In 2018, Cambridge Analytica also came, in connection with Facebook, also came to life. So there has been a number of high-profile breaches of which Ghana can learn from to improve its data protection practices. But at the individual level, right to privacy is guaranteed in our Constitution. That also includes digital rights. How do we ensure that we realize and enjoy the full right that the Constitution provides? First of all, I think we need to know our rights and the Data Protection Act, Act 843. We need to also be privacy conscious. So when we know that we have a right, we also need to take measures to ensure that individually we protect ourselves. But most importantly, we also need to enforce our right. And I think that is what Data Protection Commission is all about. And they have been leading this particular field actively to ensure that our citizens enjoy every digital dividend that technology, digitalization provides. But at the same time, we also protect our personal information. This session is an important one to discuss some of these issues and provide us with the necessary guidance in realizing our full rights as digital citizens. I welcome you to this particular session, and I wish you fruitful deliberations. Thank you.
All right, so we continue with the program by calling upon Ms. Valerie Hoodson. She is the Deputy Director for Data Protection Commission. She would give us the remarks on behalf of the Executive Director of the Data Protection Commission. Shall we welcome her?
Good morning to all our distinguished guests and all protocols observed. On behalf of the Data Protection Commission and our Executive Director, Madam Patricia Adusa-Opoku, I would like to warmly welcome you to National Cybersecurity Month's Data Protection and Privacy Day, themed Maintaining Privacy Online in the Era of COVID-19. We are living in an era of increased interdependence driven by technological advances such as the internet and mobile connectivity, and information technology has improved our ability to communicate and share information with others. Driving this technological revolution are vast amounts of personal data, which when combined with analytic technologies create innovative and transformative services and solutions. Within Ghana, the implementation of emerging technologies and the rollout of multiple state-level digitization projects, such as National ID, the National Digital Property Addressing System, mobile money interoperability, and paperless ports, have resulted in the growing use of digital services, and this has been accelerated further as a result of COVID-19. COVID-19 has affected every aspect of our lives, from healthcare and education to the economy, resulting in an acceleration of the transition process towards digitization and the adoption of digital solutions. Ladies and gentlemen, as protective measures are being put in place against COVID-19, the critical question is, how can we ensure that they are balanced with privacy safeguards, which is a fundamental human right? So please join us today to find out more about the obligations of data controllers and processors, about how to comply with provisions of the Data Protection Act 843, and to hear about how institutions across different sectors have responded to COVID-19. Thank you.
We can do it better. Thank you very much, the Deputy Executive Director for Data Protection Commission, Madam Valerie Hudson. Yes, going right to the first item on the bill, we have a presentation from the Data Protection Commission, and here Mr. Seth Fosukwatin, who is the Human Resource Manager for Data Protection Commission, would give us the presentation. Shall we give it up to him?
Good morning. Hello to our dignitaries, the audience, and those joining us online. I'll be covering the obligations of data controllers and processors. The right to privacy is critical for every individual. Talking about the right to privacy, we are looking at the right for you and I to control our personal information, and that is very key. Now, in looking at the right to privacy, we cannot ignore the obligations that data controllers and processors play in maintaining or facilitating our right to privacy. So my presentation will cover the mandate of the Data Protection Commission, what our functions are. We'll then look at some key terms under the Data Protection Commission, and we'll look at the principles regarding processing of personal data, and then we'll also cover the general obligations of data controllers as well as notification of breaches. So, Data Protection Commission, we are a regulatory body established by an Act of Parliament, that is Act 843, it came in 2012, which mandates us to protect the privacy of individuals and their personal data. Let me pause here and indicate that sometimes awareness programs, there is a misconception that the Commission has a data store citizens' personal data. So we keep everybody's personal data. Please, that is not the case. We only ensure that individuals, companies that handle you and I, our personal data, they are complying with the regulations in the Act. So we are the body established by an Act of Parliament to protect you and our personal data as well as a fundamental right. Now, in terms of the subject matter of the Data Protection Act, the focus of the Act is on living individuals. It's on a natural person. Okay, so the subject matter of the Data Protection Act is focused on a living individual, so an identifiable person. Okay, all right. Now I want to look at some key terms in the Data Protection Commission under the Data Protection Act. So I'll start with the basics and then I'll build up from that. Now let's look at personal data. Now, as the name implies, I'm sure as I just mentioned personal data, a lot of examples may begin to flood your mind. So when we talk about personal data, basically we are looking at any information that can be used to identify you as an individual, to identify me as a person, okay? Either it can identify you directly or indirectly in connection with other information. So if I'm supposed to ask you, the basic example would be what? Your name, your date of birth, your phone number, your hometown, your residential address, online identifiers. What are online identifiers? For example, your IP address, okay? You could look at your family information, okay, where you work. So all of this information, it could either be alone or you would have to combine one or two information to be able to identify you as a person so that we can identify that, oh, so that is Kweku, that is Mr. Asante, that is Elena. So that is what it comes under personal data. Person to whom the data is concerned is what we refer to as the data subject. So at the extreme left, we see the personal data, and then we have the data subject. So the person about whom the personal data is concerned is what the Act refers to as a data subject. So I'll be using these terms as I continue my presentation. Even today being focusing on privacy, these are some of the terms which may come up in our discussions. So as individuals, the Act recognizes you and I as data subjects. So we've looked at personal data, we've looked at the data subject. Now let's build on from there. So we are going to data controller. Data controller. So who is a controller? A data controller is simply any institution. It could be an institution, it could be a person, it could be a public authority. What they do is that they determine the purpose and means of processing. Okay, and you can see that there's another key term called processing. So we'll come to that. So the data controller determines, okay, that this personal data which I'm collecting, I'm going to use it for this purpose. Let me state here that the main determining factor is control rather than possession. So when you look at data, the key thing is control. Control. He or she is determining that I'm taking this personal data, I'm going to use it for this, and that purpose. For example, a financial institution would have identified that, okay, for us to provide financial services to our clients, we will need their names, we'll need their location, we'll need their phone numbers. So they've determined what kinds of personal data they will collect, and they've determined what purpose they are going to use it for. So that is essentially who a data controller is. Now let me connect it to a data processor. In one of our awareness sessions, we asked the question, who is a data processor? And picking from the name, someone says someone who processes data. Okay. So personal data processor in connection to the data controller is also an institution, or it could be an individual who processes personal data on the instructions of the data controller. So the data processor does not hold or control the data. The data processor only holds or works with the personal data on the instructions of the data controller. let me give an example. So during the lockdown, how many of you received any email alerts or from financial institutions suggesting other ways by which you could access their financial services? Can I see by raise of hands? Yes, so we have a few hands, yes. All right, so in this case, looking at the controller and processor, the controller is the financial institution, so your bank, for instance. Now, if the bank needed to inform its clients that, okay, so during this lockdown, if you want to access our financial services, you can go on our online portal or download our mobile app. In sending that information to you and I, they contracted a marketing company to provide that service. That marketing company then becomes a processor. Why? Because they will have personal data of the bank's clients. On their own, they wouldn't have had that personal data. But because the bank needed to provide that service to its clients, contracted a third party to facilitate the delivery of that service. So the marketing company then becomes a data processor. So that's the connection between a data controller and a data processor. Now let's come to processing. Processing could mean different things in different fields, but basically under data protection, processing simply refers to any activity or set of operations which is applied to personal data. So once again, you are thinking in your mind, what are some of the sets of operations? All right, so personal data, you are all processing me. It's because you are viewing. So viewing is an example of processing. I once joked with my director that even a 3-year-old baby or a 5-month-old baby can even process personal data. Okay, so processing, looking at any activity. So what are some of the activities that we do? So for example, when we came in, how many of you registered at the front desk? You all registered, all right. So they had a sheet. On the sheet, they had determined what personal data they would take, and they had categorized it. So they wanted your name, your phone number. So categorization is an example of processing. Now, if they decide to store it, storing is an example of processing. If they decide to share it, let's say after the session, they want to send evaluation to participants, and they decide, okay, so let's contract at a company to send that information to. So sharing is an example of processing. Okay, if they decide to shred it, so if you no longer need personal data and you decide to even discard that personal data, it's an example of processing. So anything that is done regarding personal data, what the Data Protection Act identifies as processing. So any activity that is done, from collection to retrieval to disposal, is what is referred to as processing. So at this point, we've looked at about 5 concepts. We've looked at personal data, we've looked at data subjects, we've looked at data controller, data processor, and processing. Now the final one at the right bottom is consent. All right, so consent, I'm sure if I were to go around and ask for your feedback, you all have an idea when it comes to consent. Now, under data protection, there are some key things that we need to note under consent. 1, consent has to be freely given. So you are not under compulsion to give your consent. And in our presentations, my colleague will touch on the right of a data subject, or your right and my right. So consent has to be freely given. Consent has to be freely given. Number 2, consent has to be an unambiguous indication of what your personal data will be used for. Okay, so it has to be an unambiguous identification of what to use the personal data for. Okay, so basically that's what comes under consent, and it also has to be written as well. So these are some of the key features when you talk about consent. So we've touched on the key themes under data protection. We've looked at the personal data, we've looked at the data subjects, we've looked at the data controller, processing, and then consent as well. Next week, we are going to look at the principles of data protection. Principles are standards which guides institution guides us. Okay, if I were to go around, each of us would have a certain principle by which we live by. Okay, so under data protection, there are certain principles that guides us. In one of our sessions, one person asked that, okay, so these principles that you are saying, are they just a wishful thinking, or there are things that are just, you are just saying that they are nice things we should have? No. These principles are enshrined in the Data Protection Act. For reference, you can look at Section 17 of the Data Protection Act. So it talks about 8 principles, and I will touch on each of the principles. We have accountability, we have specification of purpose, we have lawfulness, we have openness, we have data security safeguards, we have data subject participation, we have compatibility of data processing with purpose of collection, and we have lawfulness of processing. So in my presentation, I'll touch on each of these principles, and in the subsequent presentation as well, some of the facilitators would also throw back to the principles as well. So let me start with the left as well. So accountability. Accountability. What comes under accountability? So the principle simply states that every institution that is collecting personal data, you demonstrate accountability. Now, how do you demonstrate accountability? One, by being responsible for the personal data that you are taking. Be responsible. Be responsible for the personal data that you are taking. And also demonstrate how you are protecting the privacy of the individual. So under this principle, not only are you collecting it, or you just have it, but you also demonstrate how you are protecting the privacy of the individual. So one may ask, how do I do that? One of the ways is by ensuring that you do not infringe on the rights of a data subject. Okay, and in the subsequent presentation, we'll touch on what your rights are, what my rights are. Another way is by ensuring that you put together written contracts when dealing with third parties. So in my earlier example, I mentioned the bank and a marketing company. So they've contracted them to send messages to their clients. Now, in providing that service, you must ensure that there has to be a written contract. In the written contract, you specify what kinds of personal data the marketing company would have. You specify how you want them to use that data, and even after they are done, how you want that data to be discarded as well. You also, under accountability too, we look at having data protection policies. One of the data protection policies that every organization needs to have is a retention policy. Data has a life cycle. Okay, there is the beginning, the collection, the storage to the disposal. So you do not collect data for a period longer than is necessary. I'll cover that in a bit under lawfulness of processing. Through accountability, you need to demonstrate how you are collecting that personal data. Demonstrate how you are collecting the personal data through the policies you are having, through written contracts, and also another aspect is by ensuring that you appoint what we call a data protection supervisor. We'll touch on who a data protection supervisor is as well. All right, so basically that comes under the principle of accountability. So also following from the left, we have lawfulness of processing. So under lawfulness of processing, we are looking at the fact that if you want to process, if the controller or the processor has to process data fairly, one thing is that you must ensure that whatever personal data you are taking, you do not take personal data which is excessive. It must be relevant, okay, for the work that you are doing. The technical term is what we call minimality. So personal data you are taking must ensure that, one, it is not excessive, one, it is relevant for the purpose for which you are collecting the personal data. Number two, under lawfulness two, we are looking at the basis for which you are collecting. So under the Act, there are two bases for which one will collect personal data. Number one is consent. So you take it from the data subject directly. Number two is justification. Now, justification means that, one, is there a contract between the parties for which the collection of personal data would be required? Number 2, is there a legal obligation to take that personal data? So if you're taking personal data, you need 2 things. 1, either you write on consent, so it means that you take it directly from the data subject, or 2, justification, implying that you need a legal mandate to take the personal data, or you're taking it in fulfillment of a contract between the parties. So that comes under lawfulness. Let me state here that as data subjects, okay, so in our era, we have various social media platforms. We love to post things on various sites. So under lawfulness, the data controller must ensure that they take personal data directly from the data subjects. However, the data controller can take it indirectly, 1, if the data is made publicly available. So you've posted it on your social media platform. Okay, it's online, it's accessible. Okay, so in that case, the data controller could access the personal data. Let me move to specification of purpose. So under this principle, like the name implies, it simply means that take data for a specific purpose. So I'm collecting your name. So for example, came in, there was an attendance sheet. They are taking the data probably to know the number of people who are here at this session. So it's for a specific purpose. Maybe after that, they will send us forms to evaluate a specific purpose. So the purpose for collection has to be specific. Then we relate it to compatibility of further processing. So what this principle simply means is that if you're taking personal data for a specific purpose, 1, make sure that it is related to the original purpose. If it is different from the original purpose, then you need to go back to the data subject and seek their consent. Okay, so that is critical. If you are taking personal data, it must be related to the original purpose for which you took the personal data. If it is different, then you need to go back and seek consent as well. All right, so at the moment we've covered accountability, lawfulness, specification of purpose, and then compatibility. Let me come down to from the left. So looking at quality of information. So under the Act, quality of information simply means that whatever personal data you are taking, 3 things. Make sure that it is complete, it is accurate, it is up to date. Complete, accurate, and up to date. And this is an example I usually use. So you joined an organization. When you joined, you were not married. Okay. Last month, you got married. So then I ask you, what aspect of personal data would need to be updated? Okay. 1, your surname would need to be updated. Maybe your next of kin will need to be updated. Your residential address will need to be updated. So that comes under this principle, quality of information. There has to be measures to ensure that whatever information you have of your subject, it is complete, accurate, and up to date. Also, under this principle, the Act mandates under Section 27 and then Section 46 that data controllers have to register with the Commission. If they are registered, then they need to renew their license every 2 years. Okay, so under this Act, under the quality of information, openness rather, yes, and now under openness, the Act requires that every data controller that handles personal data have to register or renew their license. So connecting it with openness simply means that be transparent about what you're using personal data for. Okay, so I should know that, okay, this personal data you are taking, you are going to use it for A, B, and C. If you change the purpose, then you need to refer it back to me or back to you to say that, okay, this data, I'm going to use it for this other purpose, so I need to let you know. So just for be transparent, we need to be transparent about how we are using our personal data. And like I said earlier, under that principle, which is openness, the Act mandates every data controller to register and renew. The subsequent presentation will touch on how to do the registration, okay, and as well as the renewal. Now, the final 2 principles are data security safeguards and then data subject participation. If I were to ask what the data subject participation is, some may say that ensure that the data subject participates in the data collection. Okay, so data security safeguards, what that simply means is that ensure that you have technical and organizational measures in place to protect the personal data. Okay, so technical and organizational measures in place. There's what we call privacy by design. So privacy must be built by default. Okay, organizations must be proactive and not reactive. Okay, ensure that you are putting in measures to protect whatever personal data you hold in store. So that comes under the data security safeguard. Under data security safeguard as well, there's under the Act, every entity needs to have what we call a data protection supervisor. Okay, we'll look at who a data protection supervisor is, as well as what their role is. So you need to have someone in place who will ensure that, one, the organization is complying with the mandates of the Act. Number two, in case you need to do any project, the data protection supervisor, permits me to use DPS, would ensure that you undertake data protection impact assessment. Okay, would also ensure that, three, if there are any breaches, the data protection supervisor would report to the commission as well. Now, finally, data subjects participation. So ensure that the data subjects simply participate in the data collection. Now, how do you participate? Have you been participating at all? Okay, so how do you participate? What it simply means is that the data subject has the right to access their personal information. Okay, under the Act, Section 32. You have the right to access your personal information. So you can approach any data controller and request them to provide to you whatever personal information that they hold. The Act, however, says that it will come at a reasonable cost. Okay, so in providing that information, to come at a reasonable cost, and you have the right under the Act to request for personal information held about you. So at this point, we've looked at the mandate of the Commission. We've looked at some key terms under the Act. We've also looked at the 8 principles under the Data Protection Act as well. My final 2 slides will touch on, in summary, the key obligations of data controllers, and then finally we'll touch on breaches. So like I said earlier, connecting it to the principles, one, you need to implement technical and organizational measures. These include having a retention policy, having privacy policies as well. We also have register with the Commission and then renew every 2 years. So if you are registered already, the Act requires that you renew your license every 2 years. Okay, and then appoint a data protection supervisor. We'll touch on this in our subsequent slides. Now, you need to demonstrate compliance to the Act. I mentioned it under the principle of accountability. You demonstrate compliance to the Act, and the key word is demonstration. Okay, you will need to have compliance reports. You need to have the policies to show. You need to indicate how you are protecting the privacy of individuals. And then you also need to give instructions to third parties. Okay, so if you contract any other company, okay, to provide some service for you, you need to give instructions to them, written contracts. Okay, that is critical. And then notification of breaches as well. So I'll tie into the last presentation, which is the notification of security compromises. So the Act requires under Section 31 that where there are reasonable grounds to believe that personal data has been accessed or acquired by an unauthorized person, the data controller shall notify without undue delay after becoming aware. So the Act requires that if there is any compromise or any security breach, you are required under the Act to report such breaches to the Commission. The data protection supervisor, which we earlier on mentioned and will touch on in our subsequent presentation, could also facilitate in ensuring that when there are breaches, they work with the Commission in reporting same. So thank you for listening, and we'll engage subsequently. Thank you very much.
We can do it better than this, please. Thank you very much, Mr. Seth Fosu-Kwarteng, for the enlightenment you've shared with us this morning. I'm sure we are grasping a lot of information, and then we will act on it when we leave here. I want to bring to your attention that this session is streaming live on our various social media platforms. So on YouTube and then on Facebook, we are live. You can share the pages for other people to also have what we are having this morning. Next on the bill, we have a presentation from Mr. Dennis Dakwa. he is going to take us through the data protection software. Can we please welcome with a round of applause?
Distinguished guests, all other protocols observed, good morning. My presentation today I would want to continue from where the earlier presentation ended. He touched briefly on the Data Protection Act and some basic introductory information that we ought to know about data protection. In his last but one slide, he talked about the obligations of the data controller. The Data Protection Act simply gives rights to data subjects, that's you and I, whose personal data are collected, and puts obligations on the data controller, that's whoever is controlling the data and then determining what and how those information needs to be processed. And in one of his submissions, he made mention that one of the obligations of the data controller is to make sure they register with the Data Protection Commission and ensure that in every 2 years they renew. Now, to help us to help them to do this, the system has been developed, put together to facilitate this process. Section 46 of the Act requires that the Commission keeps and maintains a data protection register. And obviously the Commission is only one. We have only one office. And everybody or every data controller or data processor in Ghana is supposed to register. To help this to go on, what we have done is that we've made the registration easily accessible and it's made online. So a system has been developed to help us do the registration. We will touch briefly on the system as we move on. Please, can we take our slides? Okay. Now, compliance with Data Protection Act. Compliance in general, you and I would understand that it's a journey. It's not a one-stop event. It's not you've complied today and so that is it. Many a times people come to the Commission and they are like, we are registered. Yes, we have our certificate and that is it. The registration to the Commission is the first stage of compliance. When you register, there are other things that you have to do. But most often than not, people register and then they are looking at the certificate and says, I am registered, and that is it. So I want us all to draw attention that compliance, just as privacy compliance or data protection compliance, is a journey, but not a one-stop event. And next slide, please. Now, as I earlier mentioned, Section 46 of the Act, Data Protection Act, mandates the Commission to keep and maintain a data protection register. Just about a week ago, our new software, which is designed to aid compliance, was launched by our able minister, Madam Ursula Owusu. And I would like to talk about a few features of the system, how it works. One, the system is giving us a self-assessment, okay, and high-level compliance status. So somebody registers. The question is, after registering, what next? A system is designed such that when you register, the system itself is going to tell you what next you are supposed to do. You do a self-assessment, know your risk, and then help you to put, after you have done that, it gives you at least a gross idea what you have in your organization and how you can go on to put in place a privacy program. Now, I would actually want to talk about how the system runs. But before then, the system has a two-phase, the back end and the front end. The front end is available for you and I. If you want to check whether any organization you're dealing with is responsible in terms of it's being compliant. You see, when an organization is not registered with the Data Protection Commission, what the organization is trying to tell us is that he is not ready to be open to the Data Protection Commission or the data subject, in that he is collecting personal data from you. If he has nothing to hide, why is he not opening up to the Commission? A commission has been set up to ensure that the processing of personal data in the country is regulated. So if anybody is processing personal data and the person is not ready or the institution is not ready to let the commission know the reasons for processing the personal data, then of course you and I have cause to believe that there is something the person is hiding. And so in this case, I would advise the best thing to do is that you don't deal with such an institution. To be able to help you do this, we have made the front end of the software easily accessible to you and I, everybody. So you can go to our website and search for any company, whether the person is registered or not. So the URL on your screen lead you directly to where you can search for entities who are in good standing with the Data Protection Commission. Okay. Next slide. No. So after you've gone there, then you can now put in, you just type in anything, any keyword of any institution you want to search. You key in there, and then it will populate. Next slide, please. Okay, so this is how it will show. If you have put in place, you put in any company's name, it will come as this. Now, if you can see, at the far end of it, we have 3 colors. If you can identify, we have the blue, we have amber, and we have red. Now, this state tells us the status, the status of the registration, whether it has expired, it's about to expire, or it has not expired. Let me put it that way. Now, when you see amber, it means that it is 3 months to expiry. And the system is designed that whenever it's 3 months to expiry, that's 90 days, you have a notification. That is, the data controller has a notification that, hey, your data protection registration is about to expire. So start putting in place the next step to do the renewal. Of course, the renewal comes with other things, like my colleague said, compliance report, putting in place a compliance report. So starting the registration early can help you go through 3 months to registration, can take you through, help you going through the compliance report. And by the time it has expired, you may have gone through and then registered and duly have your renewal certificates and renewal registration ready. Now, when it is read, then it is telling you indeed, you have gone past expiry, you have expired. So if you are searching for any company and then you realize that the company's color is showing in red, it is giving you an indication that this company's registration has expired and needs to be renewed. And that if that has not been done, it means that per the commission, the company is not in good standing. Okay. Now, we can search and know basic information on companies that are in good standing or companies that are listed on our on the search register. So when you want to know the basic information, just click on the last stream. There was an icon that looks like an eye. You click on it, and there will be a very basic information about the company, like their name, their contact details, at least something basic about the company for you to identify the company. Okay. Now, I would want to talk about some key features of the new system. The new system is designed to help us to go through our compliance journey easily. Now, there are key features, and I'll talk about them one after the other. We have the payment and the invoices. We have the roadmap and risk assessment questionnaire. We have to go through it. Now, this system has given us, after you have registered with us, after you have registered with the commission, an invoice at the last stage of the registration is generated for you. There is a thread of this, or there's an audit trail of this invoice that you have registered. So let's say you have your first registration, second registration, third registration. All these invoices will be kept for you. Previously, the invoice that the system that we were using couldn't give you a track on the invoices and the information you previously put there. But now we have been able to design a new system to give track on the invoices and the information that you have already provided. Take, for instance, some people come to the commission and say, the person who did the registration for us is no more there. Can you give us the information that were provided, the initial information that was provided for us to know what information were provided. This system has been designed such that when you provide an information, it is kept for you so you can have an audit trail, go through it, and then update them as and when you need to update them, just as the invoice. So you don't lose the invoice. Initially, the system that we were using, an invoice is generated, and then when the registration ends, that's you are doing a renewal, the next registration overrides the invoice that you have. What we have here is an upgrade of what we used to have. The invoice that you have is still kept, and so you're able to keep track of the various invoices that you have over a period of time. Now, the compliance roadmap, we'll talk about that in the next slide, so I want to keep that. The compliance roadmap, after you have registered, I've already told you, the registration, the compliance is not an event, but a journey. Now, after you have registered, the system gives you a roadmap, okay? It gives you a roadmap. So you know, for instance, it would let you know what you're supposed to do after you have registered. I've registered. What next? Okay, so a roadmap will be given to you so that you can follow. Now, self-assessment questionnaire. The self-assessment questionnaire also helps you to know what you're supposed to do, what are your risks, and how you're going to deal with your risk. Now, uploading documents. Let's say you have an evidence of information you want to provide for us. You are submitting a compliance report. You want to submit to us an evidence or proof, just as my colleague said, accountability, demonstrating that you said you are doing what you said you're doing. So we have also created a document section where you can, document upload section where you can upload the document to us, and then you send it to us, and then we can go through it. So it more or less, it is aiding our communication with the data controller or the data processor. We have an managing online account. Yes, previously, registration was, let's say you want to start a registration for an entity. You go there, and then you put in, initially we use some serial numbers that you have to use a TIN number and another thing. So any other person who has knowledge or information about the serial number or the TIN number can go in there and access your information. Now it is not so. An account has to be created and managed. So whoever started the registration has access to the account, and no one else has access unless he decides to give or grant access to another person to be able to access the information. So if I have your TIN number, which was the primary information needed for the registration, and your serial number, that's what we used to call it the registration number, you could have gone in there and accessed any organization's personal information. Okay. This time we have to ensure, to aid the security, we have made sure that the system that we have put in place, nobody can go in there and get information except whoever is doing the registration and whoever has been given access to do that. Now, we have the online payment. The system has given us various ways we can do payment. Initially, we were only doing the payment after you have done the registration. You print the invoice, you go to a bank and pay. Now, you can do online payment just after you have done the registration. You can go through it and do an online pay. So there's an online payment and an offline payment as well. So this is an additional or key function of a new system we're talking about. Next slide, please. Okay, so this is a demo of the demo for the registration system that we have actually talked about. I would like to talk through it. After you have created an account, a data protection account, the account that I'm talking of, the next thing is you start the registration process. And this is how it begins. Now, with the registration, we have four main tabs that you have to tap, or you have to go through four main processes. We have the details process, and the details requires that you put in your TIN number. That is a pre-requirement. And as you can see, there are always a drop-downs, so you don't need to be going in and typing in. We've made sure that we don't put so many free text informations in there. So most of the information have been made have been coded so that it makes it easy for organizations or individuals to go through the registration process. Now we go to capacity, and as we go. So in about 3 minutes, you'll be able to go through the registration process successfully without any delay or any hitches. And as you go on, every information you put there have been saved. So you don't need to go by and save again. So automatically the information is saved and you move to the next. When you want to change the information that you have put there, all that you have to do is you go back and then correct it. Let's say in the course of registration, you have missed information out and you want to put in there. What you have to do is you can log out with your access, log out and come in and do it again. So you don't go through the registration, and when you've not ended, you can't complete it. You can complete it anytime, anywhere, when you want to. Okay. So as you can see on the screen, these are how the registration process go. As easy and convenient as possible. All that you need is a workstation and internet access, and you can do a registration. So after you have gone through the process, as I've already said, there is an invoice generation end where you now choose which option you want to use. Do you have to go through, do you want to do an online payment and offline payment? If it's an online payment, you go through that and use your card to do the payment right away. If it's offline, you choose the offline option, and then you print the invoice that comes out, go to any Ecobank branch and do your payment. After you have done that, or you send the information to us, after you have registered or submitted the application, we can see it at the back end, assess that every information you have provided is actually what you will need, and then we can process your registration for you. I can say that in about 2 weeks, the registration process, if there is no hitch, you can go through it and have your registration certificate done for you. So this is how easy our new system is. Okay, so I talked briefly on the roadmap. After you have done the registration, the next stage you have is your roadmap. This gives you what you are supposed to do next. Let's say I'm a lay person. I want to comply with the Data Protection Act. I don't know what next to do. Now, after you have registered, this roadmap will give you what next you're supposed to do. Registering, it says, after you have done that, good, appoint a data protection supervisor. So after you have registered, the next thing is that appoint somebody as a data protection supervisor, which will be talked briefly next in the next slide. The next one will be book a certified data protection practitioner's training. After you have appointed somebody, the person needs to be trained because he doesn't know what he's supposed to do. So the person needs training as well. The next thing is that then you complete your basic privacy assessment. Okay, so there will be an assessment after this slide that you see. You complete it yourself. It's a self-assessment that you do. After you have, then what you do is that you document your 3 privacy risks. So what will be your, after you have done your assessment, what is your top risk that you have identified? You know it. After you have done that, you put in place a privacy program to address the risk that has been identified. And the next thing is that you prepare for your next renewal. The renewal is, most at times people wait till it's just close to the renewal date and they want to renew. After you have done, the renewal starts just after you have done your first registration. You look at putting in place your reports. Now, the reporting, you would want to identify the risk that you have and what measures you put in place to address those risks. So we as a commission are interested in the report anyway, but our interest is ensuring that whatever you have put there, you'll be able to, one, identify the risk, your state of your compliance at the time of the report, and what plan you put in place to ensure that you address the risk or the gap that you have identified. So you can start identifying your gap right after your first registration. And by the time you are due for renewal, you may have identified and start working on your gaps. Okay, so briefly, as I spoke about, this is the compliance assessment. There are 10 high-level questionnaires that you will see after you have done the registration. You just go through it, just answer them as correctly as it is, and then you have a score. After you have had a score, the score will show you whether you are high risk, medium risk, or low risk. Then the next thing is that if it is high, then what do you have to do? Put in place a program. If it is low, then so it helps you to know your risk status and how you have to identify or address those risks. Okay, I talked briefly about the document upload section. Okay, so on the portal, we have a document upload section. You can go there and upload any information you want to give us. If you want to even show to us the proof of your payment, you can go to the documents section, upload it, and you'll find it. If you want to give to us your compliance report, you can send it, you can upload it at the document upload section, and then we will find it at the end and then respond accordingly. So any information like a copy of your policy, a copy of your privacy notice or statement, all of them could be uploaded on the document upload section. So entirely, you realize that the new system helps to communicate with us virtually without any hitch. Okay, so unlike traveling to the commission anytime, the system has been designed such that you can communicate with us through the system, and then you would know what you're supposed to do as and when it's supposed to be done. Next slide, please. Okay. So I would want to end here, and my next colleague will come and take the next point to give you the next presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Dennis Dakwa, for the presentation on the data protection software. So connecting our dots, Mr. Setofosu Kwarteng indicated that as part of the obligations of data controllers, they are supposed to register with the Data Protection Commission. And Mr. Dennis Dakwa has also given us a brief presentation of how we can do the registration with the Commission with the user-friendly system they have built. Can we please give it up to them again? We would take our health break, but then before that, I'm sure maybe we would have some questions. If we do have questions, we open up for a few questions. The data protection team is here. They would respond to us. So if you have questions, based on the presentation, the two presentations, if you do have questions. All right, sir.
Thank you very much. During the last presentation, but I have not heard anything like that. Is there anything in terms of cost that you have to bear in this whole registration process?
Thank you very much. So I relay this question to the data protection team. Do we have any cost implications with the registration?
Thank you. Yes, sorry for not actually telling you whether there was cost. There is a cost attached to it. The cost is not, it's marginal, it's a very small cost. You can afford, yes. Yes, it's a set cost from Parliament. It's been gathered by Parliament. The highest that anybody can register or pay is 1,800, and the least is 120 cedis for 2 years. So that I'm sure wouldn't be much for organizations. Yeah. And then the next one is 900 cedis. So it's 1,800, 900, and then 120 cedis. Okay. So the 1,800 is for large scale organizations. The middle, the 900 is for the medium scale, medium to small scale, and then the 120 is the small scale companies. It's a new currency, please. 900 cedis, new currency. Okay. So once again, the criteria is also set by Parliament. You are high when you are collecting personal data above 250. Yeah, you are high. Again, if you fall under a certain specific industry, straight away you go into the high class, like the bank, financial institutions. Yes, you go into it's set by Parliament and how you're supposed to collect them.
Knows where he or she where the company falls.
So I wanted to add something small. So it's not only, there are two things we look at. One is the amount or the magnitude of data that you collect. And then two is the sensitivity of the data that you collect. So there are some, for instance, you can consider the Momo guys. Their business setup is very small. But truth is, they take a lot of data. They take a lot of personal data. And quite apart from that, you could say that their data is very sensitive because it has to do with money, somebody's money in their account. And so we have to, the Act gives the Commission that leverage to discuss and to look at the situation at hand. That's the reason why you may not necessarily find it on our website saying X, A, B, C, D makes you high or low. But as you are registering, we have our teams in place that will dialogue with you and let you understand why you are high, medium, or low. Is that okay? Thanks.
Are there other questions? And the last one.
Okay, so I want to know if the Data Protection Commission has plans on in the future protecting data from the informal sector.
You would want to know if the Data Protection Commission has got plans.
Or they already do that. I don't know. I just want to know if they have plans on protecting the data for the informal sector.
Informal sector. Yes. I will relay the question back to the team.
Okay, so per the Act, every organization or institution, individual who intends to collect or process personal data is supposed to register. So there is neither informal or formal sector. If you have the intention alone to collect or process personal data, you are supposed to make the data protection aware by registering. And that we regulate every information, whether informal or formal as well. Okay. And again, the Act binds the Republic. Yeah. Everybody.
All right. In addition to that, the Commission also provides some awareness to data controllers or institutions, whether they're public or the private sector, to enable them understand their obligation as well. So we have bespoke awareness that is tailored to each institution to enable them understand how they can comply, as well as drop-in session at our office as well. Free drop-in sessions.
We will take last two questions. Yes, sir.
Yes. I would like to find out if there are sanctions for non-compliance, and if there are, what are they?
All right.
Hi, good morning, everyone. My name is Sylvia Pear. I'm a private sector organization dealing with data protection training and services. Now, the reason why I've offered to answer this question is I also deliver the practitioners training. So this comes every time we run the course. There are sections. Now, if you look at section 95, there is a general penalty, and it says something like that. If you don't comply with the requirements of the Act, the ultimate decision maker, the CEO, or the chief director in that matter, is liable to a prison sentence up to 5 or 10 years in some cases. It also says there are some penalty points, which in Ghana we call it penalty points. It's 12 cedis equivalent to a point. So in some instances, it is 5,000 equivalent. Now, you might be sitting there thinking it is not a lot of money for some of the organizations like banks and all that. But what the cost of not complying to this act is, think about the trust of your customers, your clients, your reputation. Imagine your organization being in the press saying you are not following data protection and there are issues. That is the real cost that we need to consider, not what the commission will fine you or not fine you. But yes, there are other sections. For example, if you buy or sell data, there are sanctions in the act. But what I would like you to take away is that look at it holistically, not just a price tag. Otherwise, nobody will comply because all of us might be able to pay the fines in the acts. Hope it's okay.
Thank you, Madam Sylvia.
So, probably I would like you to throw more light on, if you are talking about organization, registering or collecting data or information, and personnel. I want to understand very clearly, because somebody may have his or her own organization and wanted to register his or her members. Or I don't really know how. Is it public? Is it private? You have to set a clear distinction between this. And also, how does this Data Protection Commission manages data and information? I want to get clearance on that as well.
All right, back to the Data Protection team. He wants to know how the Data Protection Commission manages information, and then if he has got a private organization, can he register his staff or something? Maybe you would have to give a bit of clarification there.
Yes, thank you very much. So the first one, that is how, let me talk about how the Data Protection Commission manages data and all that. You see, this tells us that, of course, data protection is a fairly new concept, if I should say that, in this region, in Africa and in Ghana for that matter. So we don't manage, sometimes I have the impression that people think we have a big system in our office and it's managing everybody's data. You see when you are eating and when you are using the washroom. We don't do that. We are regulators. Our responsibility is to make sure that you as a private, private business owner, you are complying by a set of rules which is stated in the act, an act that has been published by the government of Ghana. So we are regulators, making sure that everybody who takes somebody's personal data is complying to some number of rules, so that when the person does that, we now speaking perhaps for the government is rest assured that people's personal data are protected. So Data Protection Commission does not manage people's data. We don't do that. Our responsibility is that we are regulators training and making sure that everybody, whether public or the act actually says that the law binds the republic. So even if you're one person, you establish a company today and you have employed one other person, you have collected personal data and you have to register. And so it binds churches, mosques, big companies, small, everybody, is because every one person matters to the nation. And so that's very clear. Everybody must register as long as they're taking some form of somebody's personal data. 2, the Data Protection Commission does not manage people's data. We don't have a big system and software that is looking at where everybody's driving to, and we don't do that. We regulate data controllers and data processors. We tell them, you cannot do this. You can do that. You cannot treat somebody's data like that. If somebody has a problem with MTN or something, or somebody has taken their data and they think they have a right that is being infringed on, they call on us. And we interpret the law so that they are not unduly affected. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Patrick. I'll take the last question and then we can break for our health break. If there are no other questions, then in 10 minutes, we are taking our health break. When we come back, we'll take a presentation from Dr. Patrick Adonu. Yes, so the ushers will direct us to the dining hall.
Good Within the last 3.5 years of our establishment as a center, we've achieved some significant milestones, including the following.
abangaboni sebeyobona mina ngeke ngikwazi ukuvakazela omunye umuntu kodwa ithando lakho mina ngizotshela bani ithando lwakho dala imilingi sukuma ishosha lentando yakho abangaboni sebeyobona mina ngeke ngikwazi ukuvakazela omunye umuntu kodwa ithando lakho mina ngizotshela bani nangulo mlilo lilo 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 namlilo lilo 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 namlilo lilo 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 namlilo lilo lilo wo haya mlilo na malanga bavuta mlilo nangulo mlilo bavuta mlilo na malanga bavuta mlilo nangulo mlilo bavuta mlilo na malanga wavutha umlilo namalangabe, wavutha umlilo nangulo mlilo, wavutha umlilo namalangabe, wavutha umlilo nangulo mlilo, wavutha umlilo namalangabe, wavutha umlilo nangulo mlilo, wavutha umlilo namalangabe, wavutha umlilo, wavutha umlilo nangulo mlilo, lilo 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 lilo, namlilo lilo 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 lilo, namlilo lilo 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 lilo, namlilo lilo lilo, whoa, higher, yeah, yeah, ooh, namlilo. Thando lwakho talimili ngisukumishosha, lentando yakho abangaboni sebeyobona, mina ngeke ngikwazi ukufakazela omunye umuntu, kodwa thando lwakho mina ngizotshela bane. Thando lwakho talimili ngisukumishosha, lentando yakho abangaboni sebeyobona, mina ngeke ngikwazi ukufakazela omunye umuntu, kodwa thando lwakho mina ngizotshela bane. Nangulo mlilo lilo 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 lilo, namlilo lilo 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 lilo, namlilo lilo 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 lilo, namlilo lilo lilo, whoa, higher, wavutha umlilo nangulo mlilo, wavutha umlilo namalangabe, wavutha umlilo nangulo mlilo, wavutha umlilo namalangabe, wavutha umlilo nangulo mlilo, wavutha umlilo namalangabe, wavutha umlilo, wavutha umlilo nangulo mlilo, lilo 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 lilo, namlilo lilo 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 lilo, namlilo lilo 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 lilo, hayo mlilo. Dala nibona niphila kanje, nibona niphila kanje, kungenxa yothando lwakhe, mehlo wami avolewe, ndlebe zami zimamele, lomo wami uthetha naye, kuye yedwa. Kudala ngibona ngiphila kanje, ngibona ngiphila kanje, kungenxa yothando lwakhe, yeah, 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 yeah. Mehlo wami avuliwe, ndlebe zami zimamele, lomo wami uthetha naye, kuye yedwa. Wavutha umlilo namalangabe, wavutha umlilo nangulo mlilo, wavutha umlilo namalangabe, wavutha umlilo nangulo mlilo, wavutha umlilo namalangabe, wavutha umlilo nangulo mlilo, wavutha umlilo namalangabe, wavutha umlilo, wavutha umlilo nangulo mlilo, lilo 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 lilo, namlilo lilo 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 lilo, namlilo lilo 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 lilo. sukumishosha lentando yakho abangaboni sebeyobona mina ngeke ngikwazi ukufakazela omunye umuntu kodwa ithando lakho mina ngizotshela abane ithando lwakho talimili sukumishosha lentando yakho abangaboni sebeyobona mina ngeke ngikwazi ukufakazela omunye umuntu kodwa ithando lakho mina ngizotshela abane nangulomlilo lilo 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 nomlilo lilo 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 nomlilo lilo 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 nomlilo lilo lilo wo haya somlilo namalanga bavutha umlilo nangulomlilo bavutha umlilo namalanga bavutha umlilo nangulomlilo wavutha umlilo namalanga wavutha umlilo nangulomlilo wavutha umlilo namalanga wavutha umlilo nangulomlilo lilo 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 nomlilo lilo 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 nomlilo lilo 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 hayi lomlilo. Dala ngibona ngiphila kanje ngibona ngiphila kanje kungenxa yothando lwakhe mehlo wami afolewe ndlebe zami zimamele lomo wami uthetha naye kuye yedwa kudala ngibona ngiphila kanje ngibona ngiphila kanje kungenxa yothando lwakhe mehlo wami afolewe ndlebe zami zimamele lomo wami uthetha naye kuye yedwa wavutha umlilo namalangabe wavutha umlilo nangulomlilo wavutha umlilo namalangabe wavutha umlilo nangulomlilo wavutha umlilo namalangabe wavutha umlilo nangulomlilo wavutha umlilo namalangaba wavutha umlilo nangulomlilo lilo 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 nomlilo lilo 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 nomlilo lilo 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 nomlilo lilo lilo wo haya thando lwakho talimili ngisukumishosha lentando yakho abangaboni sebeyobona mina ngeke ngikwazi ukufakazela omunye umuntu kodwa ithando lakho mina ngizotshela abane thando lwakho talimili ngisukumishosha lentando yakho abangaboni sebeyobona mina ngeke ngikwazi ukufakazela omunye umuntu kodwa ithando lakho mina ngizotshela abane nangulomlilo lilo 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 nomlilo lilo 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 nomlilo lilo 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 nomlilo lilo lilo wo haya somlilo namalanga wavutha umlilo nangulomlilo wavutha umlilo namalanga wavutha umlilo nangulomlilo wavutha umlilo Mehlowa mafolewe Hlebe zami zimamele Noma wami uthetha naye kuye yedwa Kudala ngibona ngiphila kanje Ngibona ngiphila kanje Kungenxa yothando lwakhe Mehlowa mafolewe Hlebe zami zimamele Noma wami uthetha naye kuye yedwa Wavutha umlilo namalangabe Wavutha umlilo nangulo mlilo Wavutha umlilo namalangabe Wavutha umlilo nangulo mlilo Wavutha umlilo namalangabe Wavutha umlilo nangulo mlilo Wavutha umlilo namalangabe Wavutha umlilo Wavutha umlilo nangulo mlilo lilo 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 Namlilo lilo 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 Namlilo lilo 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 Namlilo lilo lilo whoa Thando lwakho talimili ngisukumishosha lentando yakho abangaboni sebeyobona mina ngeke ngikwazi ukuvakazela omunye umuntu kodwa thando lwakho mina ngizotshela bane thando lwakho talimili ngisukumishosha lentando yakho abangaboni sebeyobona mina ngeke ngikwazi ukuvakazela omunye umuntu kodwa thando lwakho mina ngizotshela bane nangulo mlilo lilo 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 namlilo lilo 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 namlilo lilo 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 namlilo lilo lilo whoa Wavutha umlilo nangulo mlilo Wavutha umlilo namalangabe Wavutha umlilo nangulo mlilo Wavutha umlilo namalangabe Wavutha umlilo nangulo mlilo Wavutha umlilo namalangabe Wavutha umlilo Wavutha umlilo nangulo mlilo lilo 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 Namlilo lilo 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 Namlilo lilo 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 Hailo mlilo Dala ngibona ngiphila kanje Ngibona ngiphila kanje Kungenxa yothando lwakhe Mehlowa mafolewe Hlebe zami zimamele Noma wami uthetha naye kuye yedwa Kudala ngibona ngiphila kanje Ngibona ngiphila kanje Kungenxa yothando lwakhe Mehlowa mafolewe Hlebe zami zimamele Noma wami uthetha naye kuye yedwa Wavutha umlilo namalangabe Wavutha umlilo nangulo mlilo Wavutha umlilo namalangabe Wavutha umlilo nangulo mlilo Wavutha umlilo namalangabe Dalimili ngisukuma ishosha lentando yakho abangaboni sebeyobona mina ngeke ngikwazi ukufakazela omunye umuntu kodwa ithando lakho mina ngizotshela abane ithando lwakho dalimili ngisukuma ishosha lentando yakho abangaboni sebeyobona mina ngeke ngikwazi ukufakazela omunye umuntu kodwa ithando lakho mina ngizotshela abane nangulomlilo lilo 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 nomlilo lilo 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 nomlilo lilo 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 nomlilo lilo lilo wo haya somlilo namalanga bavutha umlilo nangulomlilo bavutha umlilo namalanga bavutha umlilo nangulomlilo wavutha umlilo namalanga wavutha umlilo nangulomlilo wavutha umlilo namalanga wavutha umlilo nangulomlilo lilo 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 nomlilo lilo 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 nomlilo lilo 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 lilo
If I want to join any organization, I should check whether they are registered with the Data Protection Commission.
Thank you. Liz, what is your take?
My take is that Data Protection Commission is to maintain the privacy of individuals or organizations.
Thank you. Madam, would you do us the favor by giving us the last comment as we continue with our session?
I think my colleagues have said it all. Yes, basically data protection is to regulate people who have information about others. So if you are going into any organization, you just make sure that those in charge of your data are really securing it. So that's all I know.
All right. Hello, sir.
I think the awareness is all we need so that other people will know what is happening and what other people are doing with their data. When people become aware, then they'll know their rights and what to do from there.
That is very true. Thank you all, and then you will once again welcome back from the dining hall. We are going to continue with our session. Yes, so the next item on the bill is a presentation from the Regulations and Compliance Director of Data Protection Commission. He is going to give us a presentation on how to comply with the Data Protection Act 843. So we've studied on the mandates of the commission, how the commission functions, and then going forward, how the registration actually takes place. And so if I've registered, as Mr. Dennis Dakwa rightly indicated, that the registration is actually the first point of you being compliant to the Act. So what are the other things I have to do? And then who comes in to assess, or what comes in afterwards? So we would, with a round of applause, let's welcome Dr. Patrick Lebene to give us the presentation on how to comply with the Data Protection Act.
Thank you very much. Good morning. Yes, so as from the we have been hearing a lot about data protection, and I am treating complying with the provisions of the Data Protection Act. By the way, this is what I've been hired to do, so I guess I'm doing my job, right? My very sketchy foundation to this discussion is the fact that the advancement of the human race and the measures of a person's or a generation's development has been measured in different ways. Some time back, it was what caused a person to be called wealthy. as was calculated on how much land they had. A lot of land, then you are considered as a wealthy person. I guess that's the reason why some generations had to do a lot of battles, fight between people and get more. Okay? All right. So from fighting for lands, because land represented the richness status of a industry. I'm sorry. All right. And the growth of industry. Seeing that dispensation. Thank you. You have seen that the dispensation where people are or nations are very particular and very resilient on getting industrial advancement also came. You can check from the First and Second World Wars and the race to the moon and all these things. Now, my impression is that, or I stand with a school of thought that currently the measure of wealth is personal data or data. Hence, if an institution, or I would rather say that the magnitude of data, in this our case, personal data an institution has, can be a measure of how wealthy they are. That is the reason why institutions like Google and their likes have a lot of money, because your data is money. And so some people say that the current day gold mines is data. Hence, understanding what data and its protection is so key and so important. We couldn't have believed the point. We couldn't have over-levied this particular point. So it's very important that persons who are data subjects understand what it is for them to protect themselves through the act, and also data controllers and data processors. Now, I'll take my first slide will handle the Data Protection Commission and its key relations. So how we work around it. In the first few presentations, my colleagues have touched on this, but I want to just bring it all in together and give you a pictorial view of how we connect. Now, so like I said earlier on, the Data Protection Commission does not keep everybody's data in Ghana and track people. No, what we do is that we are a regulator, and it's our mandate to enforce compliance and assessment. It's our mandate to make sure that everybody who is a stakeholder complies with the Data Protection Act. So from the Data Protection Commission, if you may, having the oversight responsibility of what happens with people's personal data, there are segments. The first, for me, that is very important, is the data subject. That is all of us. In fact, the data protection agenda that we are pushing for all Ghanaians and all persons in our region to understand, it's not a far-fetched situation. It's a situation that binds everybody who has a name. If you have a name and you have an age and you live somewhere and you have a phone number, you must take this very serious. So data subjects, which has been explained, the data controller, which has also been explained, and then the data processor. How do we interact? So it's a responsibility of the Data Protection Commission to make sure that we see to the compliance of the data controller. As it has been explained, the data controller is a person who picks your information for various reasons, whether they're a church or they're a bank or they're industry or whatever, whether it's for marketing purposes or just for statistical purposes, they are a controller. And then the data controller, many a times, employs, if you may, the data processor to help him process the data that he has collected. So how do we all work? The Data Protection Commission makes sure that the data controller and the data processors are up to task. Why do we think you as a data processor, of course I know that some of us are data controllers, but why do we think it's important for the data subject to understand this? It's important because Data Protection Commission alone might not be able, we want to, but one of the best ways we can be able to make sure that data controllers and data processors are in compliance is to drive data subjects to push their controllers to comply. For instance, if I go to a bank and I ask them, have you registered? Are you in compliance with the Data Protection Commission? And they say no. And I tell them, I will not bank with you any longer because my data is not secured with you. Now, it makes our job much more relevant, and it makes it a little bit much more easier. Now, if you as a data subject knows nothing about data protection, and whether people are compliant or not, you are ready to deal with them, then it makes our job much more difficult because they don't see, the controller and the processor wouldn't see any need to comply. So it's very important. So we teach data subjects the rights they have. So you could see that the arrow, we expect that data subjects demand of their rights. You see, our culture as a country has said that it's our culture not to ask questions. For instance, when you walk into a bank and you're asking the operators, are you registered with the Data Protection Commission? I have the feeling that the Ghanaian culture doesn't really encourage that. Don't do that. Just be quiet. Whatever they will give you, take it and go. No, it must change. Because your data is somebody's business. Every information you give out there, as we walked in here, we wrote our contact, we wrote our names. That is business enough. The name and the contact you wrote there is worth millions of dollars, if I may. So perhaps somebody from here should ask cybersecurity, where are you going to keep my data? Where will you keep it? Must start from here. Where will you keep my data? Who will have access to this data? Somebody should even protest. I shouldn't write my name and my phone number right there so that every other person sees it, because seeing is processing. And let's call our nation to work and call the standards and the system of the country to come to bear, because your data is important. I'm very sure that there are a lot of us here. If you work with the government, by now you should have received some messages from, somebody said they receive about 60 messages a day from loan sharks. I even saw some people selling land, and they say, when I read the message, I was like, if we don't take care, where the nation will get to, we'll start selling human beings. Some people say, I have a girl who is 6 years old, will you buy? Call me. And just as I'm saying and we are smiling, it's happening. People are sending all over. How many of us bear witness to what I'm talking about? You've been receiving messages, and they are bombarding your messages at odd hours. And it's wrong. Now, the truth is that there hasn't been any time that you have just written your phone number anywhere. Normally, when you write your phone number, you add your name. So you write your name, your phone number, sometimes where you even stay. So if somebody has access to your phone number and he's sending you messages, what it actually means is that he has more than your phone number. He perhaps by now also has your name. Maybe he even has your bank account. So the issue of data protection is not a very easy, I don't care. No. Once they've been able to send you a message, it tells that they have other information about you. So we must all arise and demand of compliance from every controller. When you go to church, ask your pastor, how do you keep my data? Because churches, we keep location so that we can visit. If anybody finds that data, he can come and visit you, perhaps at an odd hour. So we teach data subjects to demand of their rights from data controllers. And then we teach data controllers to know of their duties to the data subjects. Then we ask data controllers to make sure that the data processors that they have employed are working under strict security systems. And so that forms the first role. And we are saying that when you could see from the data subjects box, there is a direct link between the data subject and then the Data Protection Commission. So that when you have any complaint, you can just call us. And we've been following up and helping people, because that's our job, following up and helping people, making sure that their data controllers, it doesn't matter how huge they are. If you think that even the whole government of Ghana has breached your data in a way, write to the commission. And it's our mandate to help bring solace to the situation. Now also, today, there is data moving from one nation to the other. In fact, some of the networks that we use in our country, the servers of the networks are not even in Ghana. So when they pick all our information, all the information is stored on a server that sits in another country. This is important for us to know. Hence, is the responsibility of the data protection to make sure that when our data are being transferred from one nation to the other, the right things are being done. There are guarantees, there are systems, there are structures that are properly being put in place. Please, let's go to the next slide. So, this is the part of the training that I love. In fact, if I'm not able to move to any other slide, but I finish all my time on this, I will feel fulfilled. It's important so that every Ghanaian will know that we have these rights and enforce it. So these are the rights of you and I, who are called data subjects. Data subject. Do you have a name? Do you have an age? You bear an age? You live somewhere? You are a data subject. And have you provided that name or that personal information about yourself to somebody else? It makes you a data subject. What are your rights? One, you have the right to be informed. If anybody is picking your data, it is not rude to ask them, what are you using the data for? Please, bear with me to just do a very simple statistics. How many of us wrote our names before we entered? You wrote your name there. Okay, all of us. How many of us know what the names are being used for? Okay, I see one lady, just one lady out of all of us who knows what the names are being used for. How many honestly, genuinely don't know what the names are going to be used for? How many don't even know they don't know? All right. So you have the right to be informed, to ask. What? Hello, madam, please. May I kindly ask why you are taking this information? Why you are taking my name? Why you are? Do you want to just see how many people came? Well, I could just give you my email address. You don't need my name then. Do you want to do some? So ask. You have the right to be informed. There are some, like my colleague said, we also stress on minimality. If you just want to contact me later, my email address is enough. Or just one name of mine, Patrick, is enough. You may not necessarily need my email address and my phone number and my surname and my wife's name and all that. You don't need it. And we are saying that to all Ghanaians and to everybody who is here and out there who is listening to us, you have the right to ask, to be informed. So insist on the right. If the populace will not insist on the right, the Data Protection Commission cannot in itself alone do it. So when you go anywhere from today, when you enter anywhere and your personal data is being required, ask to the minutest detail. Ask, why do you need this data? Why do you need this data? Why should this one be given to you? And if you have any reason to think, this one, I don't want you to process it, you have the right to deny them that data according to the Data Protection Act. So you have the right to be informed. 2, you have the right to give and or withdraw your consent. That's what I said. Okay, I accept that. I accept to give my name. I accept to give my email address. But because I'm not very comfortable with all the bombardment of messages that come, I don't want to give my number. Please contact me through my email address. It's your right. It's your right. 3, you have the right to access of personal data. Any day, any time. I think there should be some CCTV cameras here, or our brothers who are recording this. Any day, any time, I can call back to them and say, hey, this footage of me you are taking is mine. You know, video coverages, footages, it's all yours. It's your personal data. And so you have the right. Please, can I have that even up until CCTV footages that are taken in places, in banks and all these places, you have the right to ask, can I get that footage? Can I get that information? You have the right to ask of your own personal data. Mm-hmm. So anytime, anywhere you have given any personal information, at least you have the right. Of course, some adjustments would have to come with it because it could come with cost and all that. And the Act accepts that these can come with cost. But at least you must know that you have the right to access your personal information or data you've given out there. Now you have the right to amend. I normally say this in a very jovial way. The only place you don't have the right to amend one thing is with SNIT, and that is with your age. I'm told that somebody, after he was just left with 2 months to go on pension, he took the matter to court, He said, no. I'm actually now 62. I have 3 more years. They go and bring all the documents, and he has falsified a lot of documents. So there are places that there will be some caveats. But the fact is that you have the right to amend. For instance, like my earlier colleague said, maybe by the time you are given A or B information, you were not married. Now that when you are married, you have that right to change it. Maybe your name has changed. You have that right to change it and all that. You did not work here, you are working there. So you have the right to amend. 2, you have the right to object. You have the right to object to some particular information that somebody wants to take from you or that you are required to give at one point. So, and I want to say this politely, you have the right to object. The law says so, and I'm adding my own little law politely. You can object politely. All right, now you have the right to prevent processing. So data has been taken, all of our data have been taken. Right now, you have the right to go back to the registration center and say that, please cancel this one, cancel my number, or take this one away. It's your right. And of course, after deliberations, if there's a need, it could be done. You have the right to freedoms from automated decision making. And so when a pool of emails have been taken, and then I think now many of the companies are doing well. When they send you junk emails, you have the opportunity to unsubscribe or keep the subscription. That's a right you have. So you can say, well, I don't subscribe to this, and you take yourself out of there. Now you have, this is the right I like so much. Well, let me read this one first. You have the right to prevent processing of personal data for direct marketing. You have that right. But the one that I love so much, which I think all of us will like so much, perhaps right after I say there must be a big hand of applause because we all like it, is that we have the right to compensation. Wow, what a good right. So if you feel that your data has been breached in any way, you have the right to compensation. And how do you get it? Just write to the Data Protection Commission. And when we value the merit of the situation, and then we give a determination on it, it's valid for any court to hold on to. So you have that right. And some of that you could take it to the law court, or you could write directly to the Data Protection Commission if you think that your data has been breached, your personal data has been breached in any way, and will help you claim your compensations. You have the right to complain. And like I said, we live in a nation where complaints are not very encouraged. So we are saying positive complaints. If you think that something about your personal data is not being held properly, you have that right. All right. Now to the next slide, the benefits of complying. Let me say that data subjects also have the responsibility of compliance. And I feel that your responsibility of compliance is to make sure that you keep the processor and the controller to task. You ask them these things. If you do that, you see, many a times we are all looking at the controllers only to comply. The controllers must comply. And we don't want to enforce our right. And the truth is that until we enforce our right with data protection, data controllers will be lax in compliance. So what is our part of compliance? We must enforce these rights. We must ask questions. We must tell others about data protection and the rights we have. So what are the benefits of compliance? One, compliance, especially for data controllers and processors. If you are here and you have a company, you belong to an institution that picks data or something, this is why as soon as we finish, you must come to us and say, wow, how can I register? And today we'll register you. So why? Because you get all these benefits. Benefit number one is that it demonstrates an accountable and responsible organization. When you have complied, you give yourself, you see, my impression about where we're going is that the world is going to run at a very fast technological space. I feel that COVID-19 has really, in fact, it really came to help the sub-region, the African sub-region. I say this in all respect, with all respect, in that I feel that the COVID-19 has really pushed us technologically to come to pace with where the world was. Today, many people are used to Zoom, and we have come to accept that it is a good alternative to in-person meetings. It's acceptable. Zoom was being used by other people in other places. But COVID-19 has pushed us to come to terms and to come at par with where technology is running to. However, as we are being pushed to come at par with technology in sync with the rest of the world, what is happening is that we are also being pushed to give our personal data out there. Hence, I predict that 5 years, maximum 10 years from now, if the world's technology should push at the same drive, sooner than later, everybody will start asking. Because data protection, people's data will come apart. See, when people keep sending you messages and you start getting 200 messages a day from loan sharks and from all these people, you start worrying. And as you start worrying, you'll be asking. And data protection will rise. So if you're a company, I can assure you, then I will be a prophet of doom for you. If you're a company and you don't register with the data protection, whoever you are, if you're an institution, church, company, whatever, once you collect data and you are not registered and you are not in compliance, sooner than later, you'll be found wanting. Why? Because people will see you as not accountable and not responsible because of how I see data awareness, how it will rise because of how technology is moving. So when you register and you are complying, it gives you off as an accountable and as a responsible organization. 2, you gain the trust and the confidence of your customers. When you are able to tell the customers, this is what we take your data for, this is how we save it, this is how we release it off, this is what we use it for, you have the right to say no to this, then everybody who comes to work with you feels, no, I can trust these people. And in that same way, if you are shielding, you don't want anybody to know where you are keeping their data and all that, very soon, sooner than later, customers will lose trust in you. Data protection compliance currently is recognized as a business differentiation factor globally. Now, let me talk about the customer trust and confidence again. The Data Protection Commission currently is in a very strong alliance with we are building a strong relationship, mentorship relationship and alliance with the Food and Drugs Authority. Now, what we want to learn from them, you see, when there is any advert on TV, and the advert has to do with food or beverage or even drugs, after whatever they have said has been said, they will quickly say, this advert has been vetted and approved by the FDA. See that everybody can say it. Because we've heard it again and again. And you see, subconsciously, what that does to our mind is that right away, you feel that, no, this product can be used. At least I have the minimal trust level to use it. What the data protection is, where we are driving towards is that every entity that takes data, sooner than later, would have to also comply and would have to say, this bank, they do all the ABSA something and all the banks or whatever institution. After that, they must say, this advert has been vetted and approved by the Data Protection Commission. Now, what that will do for you is that then you know that you can trust those people with your personal information. And hence, it will boost the trust level and the confidence level of whichever institution. Even church. After the church, like the prophet will come and give the prophetic word and say, this prophecy has been vetted. That's just by the way. All right, so let's go on. So now, now, sooner than later, in fact, right now for all banks, the Bank of Ghana will not allow you to renew your license unless you have a data protection commission, unless you are compliant. With all television stations, the NCA is doing the same thing. National Communication Authority is doing the same thing. So when you come in to renew your license, you cannot be able to renew your license until you are in compliance with the Data Protection Act. Last week, the Data Protection Commission signed an MOU, Memorandum of Understanding, with the IAA. IAA means Internal Audit Agency. And our Memorandum of Understanding with them is that every government institution which has an internal auditor, the internal auditor, after data protection have trained them, they will make sure that that institution complies. So sooner than later, like I'm saying, even when you want to gain a contract, just like it is today, if you don't have a TIN number, there are a lot of things you cannot be able to access. In that same way, sooner than later, maybe if you're at school and somebody comes and says, this school, do you have data protection compliance are your statuses right? Say no, say I will not come to this school together. So if you're a company, if you're an institution, if you are anybody who takes any form of data, this is the best time that you have to comply. Now, it also, the benefit of compliance, it enables a clearer understanding and good business overview for key decision makers. So when you comply, all your board of directors, board members, CEOs have a good overview, because you see, you have a compliance report that you can give to these key decision makers and the CEOs. They can see clearly your compliance report, and that gives them a very good overview of your business. Now, it reflects excellence. Excellence. And excellence is something you can never refute. You can speak against it, but when something is excellent, it's excellent. So registering with the Data Protection Commission reflects you as an excellent institution. Next slide, please. Next slide. Now, there are roles of the data protection supervisor. We've spoken first about the data protection controller, or the data controller, and now we are talking about the data supervisor. So when an institution registers or starts the journey of compliance, which is registration, it is also mandated for that institution to train a data protection supervisor. What does this data protection supervisor do? Or who is this data protection supervisor? One, what they do is that, and this is enshrined in our Act in the section 58, what they do first is to inform and advise on obligations. So every institution, when you pick a data protection supervisor, what the supervisor does is that he informs the institution to oblige. He informs them of their obligations, because you see, the data protection supervisor is a person who has been picked from an institution and has been trained and certified by the Data Protection Commission. So you are picked, you come to us, we liaise with our stakeholders, and then we train you. We give you a full-fledged training, and then on top of that, certify you. So it's just like somebody who is an accountant, and then somebody who is a chartered accountant. What the data protection does for you, if you're a data protection supervisor, is that you rise to become something like a chartered accountant. Now you are a certified data protection supervisor. And again, you see, because data protection will increase, certified supervisors, it will create a new job area for certified supervisors. And so the responsibility of the role, or the responsibility of the supervisor, is to inform and advise their institution on obligations. Two is to monitor compliance. Like my brother earlier said, the Data Protection Commission cannot, the task of going everywhere, to every church, to every mosque, to every school, to every hospital, to every business organization to monitor compliance is just too much to do. Hence, when we train data protection supervisors, what they do is that in liaison with us, or in collaboration with us, they monitor compliance. Three, they provide advice with regards to data protection impact assessment. So there is something we call the data protection impact assessment, and it is a data protection supervisor's responsibility to provide that advice. They monitor performance. They cooperate and liaise with so the data protection supervisor becomes the Data Protection Commission's liaison to the entity and the organization. They also have due regard to risks associated with processing operations or processing data. Why? Because they've been trained, and once they've been trained, they have due regards to that. Now, all the things I've talked about till now tells us that, or the focus is that the data subjects, they will have, there will be security of their personal data. Is that when you write your name or you give any form of personal data about yourself to anybody, you are rest assured that it's well kept, it is used properly, and nobody will misuse it. So these are what the Act enshrines to be done for the data subject in order for them to get security for their data, personal data. The data controller shall take, so we request this of the data controller. The data controller shall take the necessary steps to secure the integrity of personal data in the processing or control of a person through the adoption of appropriate, reasonable, technical, and organizational measures to prevent data loss, data damage, or authorized processing of personal data and unlawful access. To give effect to the above, the data controller shall take reasonable measures to 1. Identify reasonable, feasible, internal and external risks to personal data under the data controller's possession or control. What this means is that now for what we require of the data controller or the processor to do is that so that your personal data will be secured, we expect them to reasonably foresee. Hence, the controller cannot tell us that, oh, we did not foresee that. No, the law does not give a data controller. You see, this is the reason why all data controllers must register and must be trained. Because the law does not give you the leverage to say, I did not know, I could not anticipate this. So they have to reasonably foresee internal and external risks. So when you are trained or when you register and you are on compliance, we teach you on risk assessment. And we train you on how to do your own internal and external risk assessment. Because when it comes to law, you don't have the leverage of saying, I could not foresee that risk. 2, the data controller to establish, and we expect the data controller to establish and maintain appropriate safeguards against the identified risks. So like I said, when a person registers, we train you on how to foresee and plan risk, internal and external risk. And then we help you to understand how to safeguard your entity or institution against those risks that has been identified. We train you on how to do that. 3, regularly verify that the safeguards are effectively implemented. We expect you to do this. And this we give you in the training, we give you how this will be done. 4, to ensure that the safeguards are continually updated in response to new risks and deficiencies. In addition to the above, the data controller shall observe the following. So you see that the Act gives a very comprehensive approach to data controllers and data supervisors, to the data processors, so that everything that you'd have needed to make sure that the data you've received from anybody is properly kept, both for now and the future, is provided for. The Act specifies that you must be ready for it. And how do you get ready for it? The training makes you ready for it. So when you register with the Data Protection Commission, compliance starts with registration. We train and certify your data processing supervisor, and then all of a sudden, your institution or company or church or whatever it is becomes ready for all these responsibilities that the Act requires of you. Next slide, please. Security of personal data. Generally accepted information security practices and procedures, specific industry or professional rules and regulations. So we are trying to say that in the training, or the Act also expects that the data controller puts together safeguards that affect, that is generally accepted within their industry or professional works. And what I'm trying to say is that when you register and then you appoint a data protection supervisor, the training covers for all these things so that the person becomes abrupt and ready to undertake all these responsibilities. I'll move down. A requirement for data controllers and processors to implement a level of security appropriate to the risks, including all this. So the Act also mandates that data controllers and data processors implement different levels of securities that covers and ensures confidentiality of people's personal data, the integrity, and all for all the available systems. Now let me come back let me bring you back to book. My point is that when a person registers, their institution registers, it means they start to comply. And as part of compliance, there is training and certification for the data protection supervisor, and then general awareness, which provides you with all that you need to secure the personal data of the people whose data you are holding. Next slide, please. So we have security of processes. And this one, it also ties in. In fact, a lot of this information is supposed to help you to understand that. And if you're a data subject, you will understand that the nation has really catered for the safeguarding and the safety of your personal data. Hence, it is now our time and our responsibility as data subjects to insist that whichever institution or organization we are interacting or dealing with complies. Because when they comply, even their processes, how the technology they use, how they recycle the retention of data and all that also complies. The processes of processing data will all be compliant. Finally, let's finish it up. All right, so to conclude, I want to say that, again, data protection is a now situation. And I believe that as we go on in the future, it will be much more instructive. Hence, it is important that we as data subjects insist on the compliance of our data controllers and data processors. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Patrick Adonu Lebene. I wish to borrow your own words. This is very powerful. Thank you. Yet, so ladies and gentlemen, going to the next item on the bill, we have a panel discussion. But then before the panel discussion, we would want to open up that if anybody has got any question concerning the presentation Dr. just did, we will open up for you to do so. All right, so then I would want to call on Mr. Daylin. He is the moderator for the panel discussion, and then he will take us through. So at this time, I bow out for him to take over.
Thank you very much. I hope my presentation will also be vetted and approved by you. And I like your presentation, Doctor, and I think all of us sitting here too, we've been approved by FDA. Data has become something important and a gold mine, as you said. And we have to be asking questions. We have to be asking questions. A driver was looking for a job and was called for an interview. And the name is Upon Ajekum, Oklam. Upon Ajekum, the title Oklam. Then you ask, what is Oklam? Who knows Oklam? Ofuansi Kokobe, LA Middle School Living Certificate. How do you know this? Please ask questions. This panel discussions on cyber security, the effect of COVID-19, on privacy and data protection. I have with me the discussions. Members, let me call them to join me here so that we start. And I promise you, we'll just use 1 hour as we are already late. So just an hour, we will finish everything. But the first 30 minutes, the first 30 minutes, they will do the talking, and the rest of the 30 minutes, you will be asking questions. It's for you to ask questions. Thank you. The first, we have Mr. Isaac Socrates-Mensah, Cyber Security Center. You work here. Please have a seat. We also have Mrs. Sylvia Gifty Apia, Information Governance Solutions. And the third one, we have Ludwig Marcus Shandorf, Ghana Export Promotion Authority, and Dr. Kwamna Osudankwa of WAMSIS. Yes. And the fifth, you, the audience, so you are also part of it. Thank you very much. The topic for today is maintaining privacy online in the era of COVID-19 and the effects, that is what they will be discussing, of COVID-19 on privacy and data protection across institutions in Ghana. I'm sure some of you are having your own institutions, and what have you done during this COVID-19 period? My take is, in the response to the effects of COVID-19, several institutions in Ghana are leveraging on telecommunication to reach out to customers and maintain business interactions. Institutions have increasingly adopted remote working, virtual conferencing, online transactions are also increasing, and there's a lot of application apps for contact tracing, collection of health data. There's facial recognition, temperature checkpoints, camera footage, as he said, devices, all of them connected to the internet, collect mobile phones, and other necessary equipment to a secured virtual private network for remote work. What is the risk of somebody working from home? You know how we behave when we are at home. Are we safe to give our data to somebody to work from home? These are some of the questions I'm expecting you to ask. What happens when COVID-19 is over? You have collected my data. What are you going to do to those data? Give to us. These and many reasons why the National Cyber Security Center, in collaboration with the Data Protection Commission, organizing this workshop on maintaining privacy online in the era of COVID-19 and to ensure you, the general public, the best practices for cyber resilience and compliance. Let me now introduce my panelists. Have Mr. Isaac Socrates-Mensah. He is with the National Cyber Security Center and an officer with the Computer Emergency Response Team. So, Emergency Response Team. He's responsible for handling and analyzing incident reports through various points of contact launched by the Ministry of Communication. Mr. Mensah, there are a lot of scammers. There are a lot of websites, CDC websites, Ghana Health Service, fake websites. Somebody just sent me a text message that I have won something like $2,500 on a promotion. I should click here and enter my personal information and the bank details. Are we secured? National Cyber Security Center, securing Ghana's digital journey. Are we secured? Mr. Mensah, you said you are also in charge of incident report. Where can they report? Which incident should they report? The next also is Mrs. Sylvia Gifty Apia. She holds Master's degree in cybersecurity and management from University of Warwick, and also a certified information practitioner, certified data center, data protection supervisor, Ghana, certified information implementer and auditor for ISO 27001, and has a 25 years working experience in data protection and cybersecurity, mainly in UK and also recently in Africa. Currently, Sylvia is the CEO and the lead data protection consultant of Information Governance Solution. Has trained over 250 certified data protection supervisors, practitioners, including me, on behalf of the DPC. Sylvia has a lot, and I think she has also worked mainly in UK and also in Ghana, and has experience in the data GDPR and design and deliver data protection, compliance and registration for the Commission under the e-Transform project of the Ministry of Communication. Gifty, what is the assurance you can give to us? Compliance is what the doctor said. We are all here, Ghanaians. Should we comply to personal data collection and storage? Ludwig Marcus Shandorf holds a bachelor's degree in computer science from the University of Ghana. He currently works with the IT and Multimedia Department as an Assistant Export Development Officer at Ghana Export Promotion Authority, where he manages and maintains user applications, users, and data security and network connectivity across the regions. Ludwig, registration of exporters. These are some institutions that we have a lot of people registering. Credit bureaus. There are various softwares and apps that you have on your online. Should we trust those applications? And the last is Dr. Kwabena Osu Dankwa, holds 2 postgraduate research fellowships from University College of Dublin, Ireland, and Oxford Brokers University in Oxford, UK, and also worked as Senior Scientific Officer at Oxford Expression Technologies in Oxford, UK. He also once lectured at the College of Health Science at KNUST, and also a modular pathologist at the Department of Pathology of Konfanochi Teaching Hospital in Kumasi. Currently, he works as a research fellow at Clinical Pathology Department of Noguchi Memorial Institute for Medical Research, University of Ghana in Accra, and also as a founder and a CEO of IT startup WEM6 Company Limited. There's a lot of application, GPS tracking system, website, which are also fake, mobile app. Those are the things you have been developing. Are they safe? Are they secured? So, with your permission, let's start with Mr. Isaac Sukrit Mensah. And let's give them a round of applause, please. I think you have your mic. Please go ahead.
A very good afternoon to all of us here. And I would like to say a big thank you for the opportunity to share my ideas on this very important topic. First of all, I would like to say that digitalization is inevitable, and if COVID has taught us anything, that is one thing we can take from it. During this period, since March, where our first case was announced, various companies were subjected to go online and deploy various digital platforms to ensure business continuity. In doing so, we saw quite a lot of increase. We saw an increase in the usage of the internet for various things, from working to schooling, quite a lot of things. Again, government has also been leading the charge when it comes to digitalization in the country. The Vice President, Dr. Alhaji Mahmoud Bawumia, has been leading, and also with the able support of the Honorable Minister for Communications, Honorable Esla Osuekufo, have been leading the digitalization charge when it comes to the government sector. Various platforms have been deployed through this initiative. Through all these, there is a need. We are digitizing, but there's also a need to look at the security aspect of it and also the protection of the users of these platforms. How we keep it, the various technical infrastructure that should be put in place, to protect these information. During this period too, we have seen a rise in cyber attacks, both globally and in here also. DPC is doing a good work in ensuring that companies are compliant with the Data Protections Act. Ghana is also lucky, I should say fortunate also, that we have ratified the Malabo Convention, which is the African Union Convention on Cyber Security and Data Protection. All these things are at the policy level, and when we come down, there is a need for us to put in also measures to ensure that people feel safe when using these platforms. I'll go to what the Cybersecurity Center has seen. In terms of, let's say, institutions, you might say that they are doing well, but in terms of individuals, how well are we securing the information, our private information? There's little has been seen when it comes to leakage from institutions and those things, but in terms of individuals, when you say various institutions are taking the data of people, you realize that even the data with these institutions are already online from the various engagements that some of these people are having on social media. Anywhere, when you go online, you just go on a site, you need some information, and then you realize that you need to register with the site before you are given that information. All these come in, and by the next thing you know, your information is out there. So there is a need for us as individuals also to ensure that our information is private. I would leave this here, and then the others can also share their thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And please, if anybody wants to ask a question, you can also do so. You can just stop us, and then we'll give you the chance. And if you cannot even ask, you can just write, and I'll also read. Thank you very much. So let's go to Mrs. Sylvia Gifty Apia for your introduction and those questions on the institutions especially.
Thank you very much, Dylan. I thought I would start by setting the scene, which has already been done by a lot of the previous speakers. Data protection or data privacy is a fundamental human right, and it starts from respecting individuals' rights, from even our individuals, our colleagues, our friends. But in this particular instance, we are talking about a business's organization respecting the individual's rights. Businesses, of course, have legitimate business interests. One of such business interests will be to make money. Or if you are an NGO or a different organization, to provide services as a social responsibility or as a corporate responsibility. And that involves processing people's information. Now, personal information, as we've heard throughout the sessions or personal data. It is the fuel that runs on the engine of businesses like myself, or I should say information governance solution. Our business exists to train, to provide data protection services, and we cannot do that without your information. And when we talk about data subject, I think the whole session has been about customers, clients. Employees are also data subjects. So as a business, my obligation is not to my customers or to my delegates or to the clients that I provide services to, but it's also to the employees which I employ. And it is an obligation for businesses like myself to protect the information around the data we process. So for example, the staff files that we have an obligation to protect the information. And the list of rights that was discussed, one of them is right to access. So for example, as a business in IGS, if any of my employees, for any reason which they don't need to justify, comes to IGS and say, I need a copy of my file, what IGS has done is we have policies and we have procedures that they can follow to request their information. Okay. So all these obligations that we've listed, IGS is not exempt just because we provide data protection services. But with every business, in fact, every business that wants to sustain and continue, you must have what we call a business continuity plan. And this is not a huge document of pages of pages. It is being able to adapt to changes like natural disasters. From February, maybe perhaps December, all the way to March, none of us envisaged that we will be in this position where we are sitting in rooms with masks and practicing social distancing. So it came with its challenges. In IGS, we had a business continuity plan, a very simple one. And one of such measures was that we were going to quickly switch to online delivery. And it comes with challenges. So for example, we've had meetings with clients on platforms. Now, what IGS did as an appropriate measure is to evaluate all the online meeting platforms, i.e. Zoom, Team, you name it. We evaluated it and considered the risk associated with all of them. So a practical example of the risk assessment IGS will do, or we did, is that we compared the functionality between Zoom and Teams. And if all of you are abreast, when Zoom became the tool for everybody to use, it was free, but it came with security measures. At that time, IGS, I'm pleased to say we did not go with Zoom because we understood the risk and we could not mitigate it internally. And therefore, we switched to using different platforms. So that's an example of some of the things we have put in place. Remote working, what we have done, we have something called bring your own device. We quickly switched from allowing our employees, for example, to use their own laptops or phones to do business transactions. So we've issued, for example, laptops which are encrypted to a degree, depending on what we do. And our employees are using that to do business. So the question might be, how do we regulate it when they are working remotely? We can only put appropriate measures. So we have educated our staff, our employees, to be mindful of when to be discussing, for example, clients' information or sharing information. So little things like making sure if they are going to do a meeting, they are in a secluded area in their homes, they are not leaving their laptops unlocked. So we have a simple functionality. This does not require investment. We have enabled the auto lock on our laptops. So if you walk away from your laptop, it's locked. These are some of the practical measures we have put in place in IGS. But it doesn't come with challenges. There are a lot of challenges, like some of our clients. The biggest challenge was the shift to going into a client's premises versus doing it online. But we have assured our clients that we've done risk assessment and we have evaluated the best mitigation strategies in place in IGS. So these are some of the things we've done. I'm sure there will be a lot more questions as we go along, but As a responsible organization, I can assure all of you that if you should come to IGS, you can be assured we looked at the benefits of complying. We are an accredited institution. That alone tells you that IGS, we have to go through a rigorous compliance assessment with the commission. So that is the assurance we have at the time we submitted the report, and we continuously monitor that compliance level. So that's some of the things IGS have done, but the implication on the whole is shifting from face-to-face to online and looking at the challenges and making sure our employees are abreast with how we are going to do our business. And these are some of the challenges and how we have addressed it. And I hope I've answered your question.
Thank you very much. And to the audience, the next question before we come to Ludwig. How many of us started using Zoom during COVID? See, most of us started using it during the COVID. Churches also have been using Zoom. Now, the next question to you is it safer to work from home? How many of you are working from home? Is it safer to work from home, or you think it's safer to be at the workplace? Anybody? Anybody? Yes, please. It's safer to work from home.
Safer to work from home.
Are you sure?
In terms of COVID.
Okay. Let's listen to Ludwig, and then we'll still have more questions from you. Ludwig.
Good afternoon to everyone. Thank you very much for the opportunity to participate in this discussion. Straightforward to your question concerning applications with our clients, that's the exporters that register with us. Currently, most of us work from home. We run a shift basis, and sometimes we work from the office. Now, what this does is it doesn't really create a secure environment. Therein, I'll disagree with a gentleman who said it's safer to work from home. Because let's say you are working from home, unless your room is soundproof, if you are giving up some information, whoever is around you will hear whatever you are saying, and definitely you are going to give some personal information on the platforms that you'll be using. Now, for Ghana Export Promotion Authority, before we even started this virtual conferencing and all that, what we did was we ran a risk assessment based on the applications that are available for video conferencing. And we found out that Microsoft for Teams, that's Microsoft Teams, is one of the safest. So we actually didn't go with Zoom. We went with Microsoft Teams. For our regional offices, if there's, let's say, we have this thing we call a DEBA. That's like a staff meeting. So if there's a staff meeting or we need to have a conference with some of the exporters, we use Microsoft for Teams. And we being the host, we are able to give you a link, a secure link. One thing I'll say is most of us go onto websites without checking whether the website is secure or not. There's a way to check that. When you go to a website, there's a first, there's this text, there's a first text, that's HTTP. There's HTTP and HTTPS. Now, the HTTP is not secure. HTTPS is secure. So if you go to our website, that's gepagana.org, you will see that our website is secure, and that is where all of our exporters do their online registrations, do their payments and all that. But due to COVID-19, coming back to Mr. Moderator's question, due to COVID-19, we are not, well, I would say we are trying to regulate the risk of contracting the COVID-19 disease. So most people now can do their registrations from home. Therein, we have employed the mobile money payment system. So you go onto our website, there's a section that allows you to register, just like the DPC website. You enter your exporter details, and we take PII very seriously. That's personally identifiable information. We take that very seriously. So when you are entering your details, when you are entering the details, all of these data is going directly to our on-site and off-site servers, which are backed up on a daily basis. Now, once you have entered your details, we will then scrutinize the details that you have given to us. We don't just take the details. We scrutinize and make sure that these details that you have given to us is up to date and accurate. Once it's accurate, then we will check your payment and then issue you a certificate that you have actually registered with our company. So in a nutshell, that is how we have handled the COVID-19 effect. I wouldn't say it has not affected us. It has affected us because generally some of us have had to work from home. And I see that to be a bit risky because if you are in your company, you have, every company has a code of conduct. Okay, so within the company, there are certain things you do and don't do. But when you're in the comfort of your home, you're like, oh, I'm free to do what I want to do. So you may end up risking certain information that is not supposed to go out there. So in a nutshell, that's what I have to say.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I have a question for you. Has there been a situation where we have an exporter registering on a fake website and paid some money and coming back to you that this is what they did on the fake website that they did not know, or it's never happened?
As far as exporter registrations is concerned, we haven't really experienced that. But prior to that, we have put some measures in place. Like I said, we scrutinize the data that you give to us. So we do not just take the data and then say, okay, this is the data you gave us, so we are going to work with this. But we'll scrutinize it, make sure that the data is accurate, and then we can issue a certificate for you.
Thank you very much. And let's go to Dr. Dapa for your initial comments, please, and those questions. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much for the opportunity to talk to you. I will take a different twist for his question based on the fact that I've worked in different hospitals, and I've also been involved in training of medical laboratory professionals and also medical doctors. I would say that the DPC have a lot of work to do when it comes to the health sector. If you've been to the hospital, you realize how data is being handled from the point of the patient meeting the doctor to the lab where lab tests are done and the results are in, to ensure that if somebody is tested as HIV positive, they don't tell anybody else apart from the patient, to the point of some patients having their own folders, moving around, and that can lead to loss of data. So there's a lot of work to be done there. The second point is we also have medical devices that have its own associated risk in the sense of being hacked into so that the machine will not work. And we have systems in terms of softwares and apps that collect data, and this data, how it will be handled, said that there will be no breaches from here and there. Our company, we are interested in developing healthcare systems, and we've so far launched one. You were about to launch the second one, that is the mobile app, and I will thank Madam Sylvia for the good job she has done. I think last 3 weeks we had a program, and I was one of the participants. I learned a lot. It was a sober reflection for me. Even though I had read around privacy policy, data protection, and what have you, but during that program, I learned quite a lot of that. And that made us to go back to the drawing table to look at every step of the software processes where there's a potential for breach or risk or what have you. And even last night, I slept around 1 a.m. because you were still working on that. So the software, if I could have used this opportunity to talk about, is a software that you can use to do anything concerning health for humans and animals. So you can use it to order for drugs from pharmacy shops, book an appointment with a GP, book an appointment with a physio, what have you. If you'd want to have the physio to come to your house, or for you to go over there, if you want your vet to have a look at your pet and what have you. So it's a huge platform, and it also involves collecting data, because before a medic can have a proper diagnosis with you, he or she needs to know your medical history, whether your age, your blood group, whether you have hypertensive, family, medical conditions, and what have you. And based on the data that you'll be gathering, we have to have a lot of different encryption protocols. Should you take any mobile app, take WhatsApp or what have you, the moment you turn on your phone, you can easily click on it, and it's not ask you for any password or what have you, so you just have access. Should we have a similar mobile app for health, whereby the person has his or her medical conditions, maybe the person is hypertensive, HIV positive, or what have you, and somebody gets access to the mobile phone and turns it on, and just the person will know that, okay, Mr. So and so is this and that and that, and the hacker can use it for so many reasons, as a form of blackmailing and what have you. So we are doing a lot of work to ensure that we do the right thing, and by the close of the month, you should be able to launch. But as Doc said, I would also encourage anybody over here to have the DPC certification, because when we launched the first software, which is for the healthcare providers, the pharmacy shops and the clinics, one of the advantages we have the competency to safeguard the information that we get from you guys. And I think it's a win-win situation. Personally, I do get a bit scared about having a software or a mobile app being hacked into and having sensitive information out there, which could derail your company's vision and the image and everything. So I don't know if I've been able to answer you.
Yes, I still have questions for you actually, but okay. Your application, you said it's designed, and I think I'm happy that you are saying that with the assistance of Sylvia. So that is what you've been calling privacy by design by default. So if you start with all those protection from the onset, that is how you achieve it. But I don't know whether the audience would like to book appointment online and allow the doctor to come to the house. How about if it's a fake doctor?
Yeah, so we have a system. Our system is that we are working in conjunction with HEFRA, So any facility that we register, we have a session that they need to input the registration number of that facility. We then later have to cross-check whether it's a genuine facility or a fake one. Also, every personnel of an institution, be it a pharmacy or a hospital, what we do is most professions, they have registration numbers. So if you're a medical doctor, you should have your medical registration number. If you are a medical laboratory, you should have a number. You have to provide all these things. So you do a background check to ensure that anybody who is going to maybe order for a drug from pharmacy A, that pharmacy A is in a good standing to order the drugs from. If the facility is not registered, you put a flag over there that we cannot guarantee anything coming from such a facility. So as I said, we are moving to and fro to ensure that, but it's also by the comfort of staying at home and ordering for drugs, the comfort of being at home and having a medical conversation with your doctor on either video or audio, I think is great, because why they need to go to the hospital, be in a long queue to be taken care by a doctor, if you could do that in your office or in your bedroom.
Thank you very much. And I will still go to the hospital to see the doctor there. I will not trust anybody coming. How about you? Please, questions? Yes. Who has the mic?
A Zoom mobile application, and I wanted to find out what are the security requirements to check by data subjects before you use one, maybe a data subject use Zoom or Microsoft Teams, and if any indicator that you can advise a data subject to check before you embark on such an application, and the difference between using a mobile application with a Zoom as well as maybe a web application, if you can advise us on. Thank you very much.
Sylvia, please, before you go on, any other one related? Let's take two, then you can answer them.
Thank you.
We'll take the other one before you come in. Yes, thank you.
Thank you very much. I think he spoke my mind. I mean, so that question is gone. But the first speaker, I think in his submission mentioned that companies and organizations have done well when it comes to data protection, but not as much as it has been done when it comes to the individuals. So my question is practical examples of ways that individuals can take charge of protecting their data or protecting themselves as far as online usage of going online is concerned. So if you can give us practical examples of things that we should do to protect ourselves.
Thank you. That is the duty of the individual. Okay, so let's have Gifty first. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, I think going on Zoom, I'm not here to critique Zoom on the security features, but we all know you can have a free account. We also know, for example, when you're joining Zoom meeting links, these links are public and the passwords are put on the flyers. So, from our perspective, for example, if we have to use a Zoom for a meeting, there are extended functionalities that needs to be enabled. You can go into the settings and switch them on. For example, one way we make sure only those who have booked to attend one of our courses is to register them, and we send them a unique link. If you give the link to somebody else, the person appears as if it's the same person. So, for example, as an institution, how I can check there's somebody else in the room, so prompts me that the security issue is that we've got two people of the same name. So one of the things to look out for or to practice is, even as the free platform, if you are setting up a meeting with friends, colleagues, or church or society members, go into the settings and enable unique password or enable registration. So only those who have the need and the access given to them by you will be able to attend. And we've done this in so many ways. We've done a few webinars for controllers and data subjects. And this is how we do it. You pre-register, we authenticate you. So using Zoom and Teams and all that, you see, with my little cybersecurity knowledge, because today I'm not here from cybersecurity perspective, is that every system has functionalities that needs to be enabled by either the user or the organization. And more often than not, we don't switch them off. It comes with the generic password of admin, which everybody has access to. So when you're using these online platforms and you open an account to be able to do the meetings, go into the settings, and these are not technical jargons. They are on and off buttons or checkboxes. So from a user perspective, these are some of the things you need to look at. If you are joining meetings that the password and everything is out there, I am not saying don't join, but be mindful that anybody else can be in the room listening. And the other thing you need to be mindful of is when you are switching on your videos and all that, if you don't want to share your photos, don't switch it on by default. So these are little things you can do, but I'm not here to critique anyone too. I think my earlier submission was that we did a risk assessment. Risk assessment is about identifying the risk and putting mitigating strategies to reduce, eliminate, treat, or transfer the risks. So to reduce means, okay, you can't avoid using Zoom. But to reduce the risk is perhaps treat some of these things I've talked about. To eliminate it, decide not to use it, for example. So I don't want to give you a lecture on risk assessment, but these are things you need to look out for as data subjects or as organizations when you're using some of these platforms.
Thank you very much. And the second question is about, Doctor talked a lot about our rights, but what about our responsibilities? But Doc, you didn't say anything about that. You know, we now know our rights, but how about our responsibilities? So if you can come in before you also talk about how to report the incident on your website, please. Thank you.
All right, so the responsibility of the data subject, I think I mentioned that a lot also, is that they will insist on compliance of the data controllers and processors that they are dealing with. That's your first responsibility. What I mean to say is that when anybody that you've picked, anybody who has picked, or any institution that has picked your personal data, make sure that they have complied. Make sure that they have registered with the Data Protection Commission. Make sure that you ask questions. Make sure that now your responsibility is effecting your rights. So make sure that your right is being done, and that's your responsibility to do. So before I go on, I'm saying that one of our responsibilities as data subject is to make sure that we insist on our rights. Two, it's also important that we know that we are responsible for our own personal data. Like my brother said, there are some websites that you need an information and you're supposed to put in some information of yours before you get it. As much as possible, unsubscribe from such website, because you have no idea where your personal data is going. That's our responsibility. Two things I'll say as block views. And if anybody needs more, please come and register with the Data Processing Commission. We'll give you more information. But first responsibility, you are supposed to make sure that data subjects and data processors comply. It's your responsibility. Two, your rights is your responsibility. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes, Isaac.
To answer my brother's question in terms of individuals, I would say that when it comes to the information security chain, the user is the weakest link, because we can put in all the technical measures and everything, but it is up to the user to ensure that these things work. If the user is not educated or is not aware of some of the risks, I'm telling you for sure that it is going to happen. There will definitely be an attack. So the users have a big role to play. In saying that, when doing some of these things, there's a need to ensure due diligence in all that you do when you are online. There are several things going on. For instance, let me talk about phishing. If you don't take due care in some of these things, you might end up giving information to entities that are fraudulent. There are several instances that I can cite, and also reports that we have received at the center. We have various banks whose websites have been cloned. If you don't really take a good look, you might think it is your actual bank's website. You log in with your details and they redirect you now to the actual bank's website. By then, your data is already gone. They might even use, you might see a U in the original one, they make it a V. So if you are not diligent about some of the things out there, you might end up giving information thinking that you gave it to the entity. Also, again, during some few months back, I downloaded a banking app, and in setting up, they required some information, definitely, in order to set me up. And it got to a point, it was asking me for my ATM PIN. Then I asked myself, I'm setting up a mobile banking application, asking me for my ATM PIN. It tells me that there's something suspicious in there. In every information you give online, there is a need to ask yourself, do they really need this information to give me the service I want? You understand? We need to look at some of these things. So due diligence is very necessary. But in putting all these things in place, we can't say there's nothing like 100% security. Definitely, one way or the other, there might be a breach. It's about how resilient our systems are to recover when these things happen, and who to go to when these things happen. That's why in 2018, the Minister for Communications launched the 2019 launched the Cybercrime Cybersecurity Incident Point of Contact, so that in case you fall victim to any of these, you can report. And the various portals are available to cut across the various sections of people. So you can just call 292, for instance, and then you get to the center. You can even text. We also have emails. That is report@cybersecurity.gov.gh. We also have a mobile app. Okay, so the mobile app is not only about reporting, but also gives advisories. Sometimes, like I said earlier, it is necessary that the user is aware, so that we can prevent some of these things rather than falling a victim to it, and then you get to know, I should have done it this way. So you go on our website also, there are various advisories there. We have current issues, what is happening. And you know, the cyber space is so close to us than we think. You understand? What is happening in the UK today can happen to us within the next minute. So when you go there, you get abreast with things that are happening worldwide because they are very close. It can happen at any time. So you can visit also our website. We have www.cybersecurity.gov.gh/report. There is a form there. You can also choose to report anonymously. It's not only about the crimes that you face or something, but you can also report things that you suspect, so that we can verify for you and say, okay, this is good. We have several instances where people are calling to verify that I've met this person on Facebook. He says he wants to do this, do that. Again, we are seeing a lot of impersonations of public officials online. People are interacting with people they think this is the person. Meanwhile, it is not. So people send links to us, please, this is what this person is saying. Could you verify for us? We look at some of these things and then revert and tell you, no, this one, you should be cautious or you should be careful. There's something fishy in there. Or hold on, let us do our checks. We'll get back to you. So that we can prevent some of these things. It's not easy falling a victim to a cybercrime because it's quite something else. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I don't know who has been a victim before, but we also have in our midst an officer from the Ghana Forces, and I don't know whether you intend to share something with us on COVID before anything. You don't want to? Okay, now that is, I don't, and Doc, I was going to ask you a question, but let's ask Anybody? Any questions? We still have 16 minutes to go. Sorry, 14 minutes to go. At least we want to be using the 1 hour. Yes, please go ahead.
Okay. Please, a lot have been said on. Okay. A lot have been said on being on the online platform itself, but nothing have been said about the devices. There are some devices that may contain malware that when you connect it to your computer, they save your data and they may send your data to some service providers. And I want to know what will be done about that as well.
I think that is also another important point. That yes. Any other question before we answer that? Our devices, are they certified devices from cyber security or from DPC? Our devices. Who will take that? National Cyber. Okay, please go ahead. Yeah.
So when it comes to the devices, in every corporate or organization or institution, usually it's advised to use the corporate devices provided by the organization, not your personal device. Now, the reason being that your personal device contains personal information, and the corporate devices have been given to you as virgins. There is nothing on it. Now, before it's given to you, the IT department of that organization is supposed to make sure that the device they have given to you is compliant, in the sense that it has, for example, with what you said, the virus, it has a very strong antivirus. So when I put in a pen drive, it doesn't just start eating up my data, as in my information. Also, these devices are, for us at GEPA, we have the devices being backed up regularly on a daily basis. Okay, so for instance, if your device should maybe in the course of the working day fall down and then stop working, every staff member has a domain account on the server. So if you bring in your personal device to the organization, that device will not be added to the domain account on the server, because first and foremost, that personal device would be a threat to our server. Because we don't know what you did with your personal device before you came to the organization. But with the virgin device that we have given to you, we can trust and know that whatever is coming in is going to be regulated by our firewalls and our antivirus. So that's a little I can say concerning that. And also, we have put in restrictions. At GEPA, we are putting restrictions. You cannot visit certain websites. Every website falls under a category. So we have created categories for those websites that you cannot visit. I think if all of these features or policies are put in place, devices will be secure within the organization. Thank you.
Thank you. But before Sylvia comes, Doc, what happens when COVID is over and the devices they use to take our details? Will DPC do something about it? But please think about it. Let Gifty comes in before. And if you don't have any other questions, they will just wrap up and then we bring this curtain down. Thank you.
I promise to be very quick. I think my colleague is explained a number of measures to be done, but I just wanted to add, please don't get into your heads or a concept that using your own device, it's risky, but there are things you can do. We call it bring your own device. Now he said, for example, an organization will give you virgin laptops. I just want to add, not all organizations can always afford to give you virgin devices. So for example, if an employee leaves and they're using the company's laptop, all they do is refurbish or rebuild it and put information. But from a cybersecurity perspective, if you back me, you can restore some of these things. So I will encourage your organization to go for things like encryption and for the devices like access. These are extra things you can do on top of what is explained. So bringing your own device, it's not doom, if you like, but it's what organizations like ourselves can do to protect the information on it. So for example, if you are using, let's say I'm using my iPad, my personal iPad for work, there are things that can be done from your security posture that can, for example, remote wipe it. So if that laptop is lost, apart from backup, you restore the information. But what happens to the information on the laptops? And there's been a lot of breaches because employees or customers or clients have left their laptops in taxis, in Ubers, in trotros. So I think the only thing I want to add is you need to extend the level of security. If you can stop your employees from using that, that would be a very good thing to do. So I think that's all I want to say. But I don't want you to go thinking the fact that you're using your own laptop means ultimate risk. Yes, there is some risk, but you can mitigate those by putting some of the measures we've talked about.
Dr. Dankwa, what happens when COVID is over? Are you going to go back to how we used to do things? And that is the last question for all of you, just within a minute, and Doc as well, then we can bring these discussions down. So let's start from you.
Okay, I don't know if you have in mind of COVID tracking apps or systems.
But please, before you, okay, there's a question from Facebook before you can do that. But a lady is going around distributing a form for assessment, so please note to that. Please go ahead then.
Okay. On the COVID tracking systems or apps, I'm not aware of a COVID tracking app in Ghana. It's a kind of software by KNUST. It does not take your personal data. It just does the risk assessment, how vulnerable you are. So you be asked few questions and then you put in there, then it will generate it to tell you that, okay, you are at high risk of contracting the virus or not. Now, with the institutions that have been mandated to do COVID tests, Noguchi, KCCR, they have their own internal policies of handling data. I don't know whether if these institutions have been certified by DPC. I'm not aware of that. So I cannot say exactly what they will do with the data they have. But these two institutions, they are research institutions, and they have what we call ethical review committee that ensures that any data they have, they strip the patient name from the other data set, so that you'll not be able to say, okay, person A is COVID-19 positive or not. That's all that I can say.
Instances before even you get a result, the thing is in the media, but
that's why for my intro I did say that DPC
has a lot to do.
They have a lot of work to do.
DPC has a lot to do, yes.
From the point of sample collection to the result coming in. I don't want to be too specific on certain issues or also be mentioning certain institutions. So what I'm trying to say is that they have a lot of work to do. I have had a situation whereby I got to know somebody's result, even though I did not ask that person that if so-and-so has done that. So what I'm saying is that DPC, they have a lot of work to do on that level. But every research institution, they have a sort of an ethical review committee by DPC. I don't know, and I cannot comment on that.
There is a question for you, last. So please let him. Do you have any? Yeah, which is from the Facebook. So I'll read it to you. But do you have any comments on that? What happens to our data when COVID is over? What are you going to do?
Okay, I'll say that in terms of digitalization and the use of digital platforms, we're only going to see an increase. Nothing will change in terms of the uses of technology. We're only going to see an increase, and we are also definitely going to see an increase in attacks. So there is a need for each and every one of us to be abreast with what is happening, to be abreast with at least basic things that we can use in securing our various devices and our information. As I speak currently, the cybersecurity advisor is in the regions doing awareness and capacity building for various institutions so that we can equip ourselves in preventing some of these risks that come along with the technology. Thank you.
Exactly. Prepare for it. Let's be careful. We know our rights and our responsibility now. Any relationship between the data protection supervisor and an ISO 27000 lead auditor, how will an individual with such a qualification fit into the new Data Protection Act? I don't know whether you or but I think you have been the lead auditor as well. So,
okay, the role of a data obligations. Now, we don't have the time to delve into what ISO 27001, but essentially that is a standard that demonstrates one of only the 8 principles that we went through and document or things to demonstrate security. ISO, it's one of such documents or standards that you use to demonstrate. So the relationship between an auditor and a DPS is basically you're doing the same function but from different perspective. If you're an ISO auditor, your focus is on security of the information of the organization, including personal information, whereas the data protection supervisor has the role to monitor, advise, and audit all the obligations, including a quick answer for that. What next for information governance solution? We hope to continue to blend both face-to-face with online platforms to deliver the services. Because as Dr. Dankwa said, DPC has a lot of work to do. It means from all the system regions, they need to raise awareness through the country. And I believe using both mediums will be a successful way, or a way that I'm sure they will consider useful. So for IGS, we perceive or we see ourselves continuing how we started in terms of using as we come across them.
Thank you very much. And let's have Doc for the last explanations, and we'll come to an end.
Thank you very much. So I want to introduce the Executive Director of the Data Protection Commission to, maybe she'll do my take. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Doctor.
The question is, what happens? First of all, we know that the DPC has a lot to do. That is all what we've agreed to this morning in terms of ensuring compliance and also security of our personal data for our institutions to ensure compliance. But the last question for him was, what happens when COVID is over and the devices they use to collect our data, will it be given back to them?
And I'm very happy that I caught the last end of this program. I was rushing between programs to make sure I was here to participate before you leave, and I'm very pleased to see so many of you here today. The specific question, I will not deal with it as a specific, but generally, when a project commences, at the conceptual stage of every project, there has to be some thought that should have gone in, and it has gone into this one, about how long we want to collect the data for what purpose, and at the end of the life cycle of the data, which is when the data has achieved its purposes, what we do with the system. And that is what we call the decommissioning of systems. So the project team, having completed the work of this project, should be looking at how they end the life cycle of the project. That involves a whole lot of processes. One is an instruction clearly from the project owners to the project members, clearly stipulating what should be done to end the project. Some projects end up with a legacy database, which means the data in the system is continuously useful for a purpose, not specifically for the project, but for some other purposes. And in this case, I perceive that the project data that was collected would be useful, probably to another agency or to some other aspect of the national work, possibly to the Ministry of Health, for analyzing what was gathered and to be able to use it to strategize ongoing how we meet another emergency or how we decide as a nation going forward. So there has to be a legacy team to hand over the data to, which should have been documented by now. Now, I expect that that is what will be. Under our data protection law, there is a clear exemption for data that is collected for the purpose of research and national knowledge. So we expect that the library that will be probably sitting within Ministry of Health will inherit the data to be used for research and to do some forward planning around how, if another type of COVID should happen, how the nation will position itself. This data that is handed over may be anonymized or pseudonymized, and these are data protection jargons, but simply meaning that the data shouldn't necessarily be continuously identifying individual as Mr. A and B who had data, who had COVID or not, but the essential detail of the data is how, as a nation, we will use the data to make decisions. So they may anonymize it so that you can't specifically identify an individual, but the statistical information will be held to make useful decisions going forward. The system itself that held the data needs to be decommissioned if it's no longer going to be used or useful to the nation for the purpose for which it was created. The decommissioning of the system comes with clear instructions about how the information is extracted from the system and given it to the legacy body, and then how it is purged, who does the purging, what method is used, and how the whole parts of the system, which is the hardware and the infrastructure and the team, are decommissioned. So that is a whole structure of the data protection management that will be dealt with. And I expect that it will be dealt with accurately because we've had a lot of discussion concerning it. Before I took the mic, I also had a question about so what happens about data protection going forward post-COVID. Post-COVID, we are looking for individual, and Sylvia did mention about the audits and the its alignment with ISO and how it's going to be worked. But the essential, important aspect of what happens is that your rights shouldn't be overridden. Now, in an emergency, we have the executive instrument that has allowed the country to create the pandemic tracker to do what they need to do. It doesn't override your rights as individuals. If post-COVID, or even now, if an individual feels that their data is being used in a way that they are not satisfied with or doesn't respect their rights as an individual, it doesn't override your right to complain to the commission or ask for clarification or transparency into the how it is being done. You still have that right, even going beyond the use of the tracker. You have the right to complain about the data that was collected and how you feel that your rights were not respected or otherwise. Like every war, which we consider the COVID to be a type of war, post every war there's a human rights assessment. And there's a lot of global discussion ongoing right now about the learnings of the use of a tracking device globally. Ghana is not the only country that put a tracker together quickly and started collecting data. Many countries have done it, and the international privacy community has been having discussions about this and the learnings to draw from it. Some of the key points that we have got from this whole pandemic is that the need to enable transparency for individuals in the midst of all of these issues. The important thing about privacy by design in the creation of software to manage people's rights has come up. The importance of enabling continuous respecting of individual rights has also come up in different ways, and the world is still trying to understand and to position privacy commissions such as ours in working with the political level or the state level decision making around how such issues should be managed. So I think it's a case of watching this space to see how, as a world, we learn about how the development of fast track implementation of such systems aligns with the responsibility of protecting personal data. And there's no single answer to that, but I'm sure in the months to come, there will be a lot of statements to be put out about the best practice that has been adopted. So that's the point I wanted to make. Thank you.
You very much. And I think that's a way of ending these discussions. And I thank you all very much. And I'm sure somebody is coming to give the vote of thanks. Okay. So I promise you an hour, but we spend about 8 minutes more. Sorry for that. Thank you.
Yeah, in our midst, as part of this session, we have Home-Based TV and then City FM, who are streaming live on their social media platforms. And as I indicated earlier, we were streaming live on the various social media platforms of the National Cybersecurity Center. At this point, we will all agree with ourselves that, yes, issues with privacy are pertinent issues that we can't put a blank eye on. So going forward, we have to know that, yes, our privacy is a fundamental human right, and then we have to keep it as such. Thank you very much, and I really enjoyed you being part of us this is the afternoon, right? Yes, so this afternoon. We wish that all that we've come here to study, we will practice them and demonstrate accordingly. Thank you very much. We've come to the close of today's session, but then as you already know, the awareness creation is still on, the National Cybersecurity Month is still on, and so other programs would subsequently follow. Thank you. We'll be going back to the, should I say dining hall again? All right, so we would recess for our refreshment. Thank you.
Service were equipped with tools to forensically examine digital devices. And as I speak, they have given us computers, they have given us tools, they have also established a lab for us. If it has not been because of the national cybersecurity collaboration, we wouldn't have come this far.
our contribution is very significant in the sense that when you look at the different areas that the critical national infrastructure falls in, everyone and every entity for that matter uses personal data for different purposes. For collecting data on travelers or employees or citizens one way or the other, people who are doing the right thing, people who are malicious and trying to do the wrong things. All these categories of individuals have rights under the Data Protection Act to be protected.
The mandate for the FIC and the collaboration between the National Cybersecurity Office is one of very deep collaboration, because we at the FIC see cybersecurity and cyber crime as one of the predicate offenses of money laundering and terrorist financing.
The National Communications Authority has supported the National Cybersecurity Center's efforts, which led to the accession of the Budapest Convention by Ghana.
From GCNet's perspective, we've come in as a public-private partner. We've partnered with the National Cybersecurity Secretariat. First, we sponsor the program because we believe that what the Secretariat is doing actually bodes well for the nation. Now, we have to actually understand that the times in which we are now are dangerous times with a lot of cybersecurity threats. There's a lot of ransoms, there are breaches taking place across the globe, and Ghana is no exception. And so the work of the Secretariat, we believe we need to support, because without that support, no international body will have the confidence to come and implement solutions in Ghana.
Within the last 3.5 years of our establishment as a center, we've achieved some significant milestones, including the following. The launch of the Safer Digital Ghana, which was done by the Vice President in 2018. The launch of the Point of Contact for Incident Reporting, which was launched by the Sector Minister, Honorable Eslows Wekufu, in 2019. The development of the computer emergency response ecosystem, including a setup at the NCA, but also our engagement with the central bank for the financial sector. The revision of Ghana's national cybersecurity policy and strategy, which has been enhanced to the level of international standard. We've also drafted a cybersecurity bill which seeks to regulate the cybersecurity ecosystem of the country and to further consolidate our gains as far as our cybersecurity development is concerned. But most importantly, we've also signed up to 2 international conventions, which we are implementing. These are certain milestones which have also attracted international attention, including the Council of Europe, which has recognized Ghana as a hub for capacity building, ECOWAS Commission, which has then requested Ghana to lead cybersecurity in the sub-region, but also the World Bank, which has further built the confidence in investing in our digital economy. I think we haven't gotten it yet. We're still on a journey, as a matter of fact, but they are critical milestones. The main reason is the fact that we have a strong political commitment to cybersecurity. Take this from me as advisor. I think political commitment has been one of the fundamental successes, determinant that has really brought us this far. But most importantly, I think we've also been privileged to have a champion for cybersecurity in the person of the Minister for Communications, Honorable Eslows, who has persistently led the fights, led the charge towards improving Ghana's cybersecurity readiness. I think we're grateful for the leadership of the country, but also for the technical working group for their support in getting to where we have gotten to. Let's continue and scale up our digital protection.
The technical working group has been divided into subgroups. We have the criminal justice, defense and intelligence, stakeholder engagement sub